After a short while, a few Nisbets, led by Nisbet 1, came over. In the territory, there are a total of 50 Nisbets left behind. The remaining Nisbets have been arranged in the Bloody Mountain Range, Cold Wind Mountain Range, and Desolate Battlefield Fortresses, these 3 areas. Lord, please give the order. Nisbet saluted Fang Hao. Fang Hao nodded, handing 18 hero hearts to Nai Wan and saying, "Here are 18 hero hearts. Prepare for the hero trials in the next few days. The rest can wait, there will be more hero hearts for you to use in the trials later." "Thank you, Lord." Nai Wan received them and expressed his gratitude. Nisbets, among the types of undead soldiers, belong to the type that possesses independent thought. They can undergo the hero assessment, but as Nai Wan said, because they contain modified traits, the assessment to become a hero will be more difficult than for ordinary races, and the success rate will be lower. If the first attempt fails, the materials needed for the next promotion will multiply. By the 3rd or 4th time, they can no longer pass. Ordinary forces would then cancel the resource support for the hero, as the consumed materials have already multiplied many times over the normal amount. With that money and resources, several same-level heroes could be cultivated instead. All right, you can go prepare. You can conduct the assessment yourselves when ready. Fang Hao casually said. There is neither tension nor joy in the emotions of the undead. Hence, Fang Hao didn't say anything about easing their state of mind or not being too nervous. They aren't nervous at all. Yes, Lord. The group of Nisbets saluted again before retreating. Fang Hao attached great importance to the Nisbets. Whether or not a hero-led army can exist within his territory relies on these Nisbets' performances. He held some anticipation in his heart. As for the hero promotion material, the hero certificate, there wasn't a good candidate yet, aside from the skeleton heroes he created, who could not use the hero certificate. All other heroes were eligible, but as of now, no one had reached rank 10. Those that reached rank 7 included the Corpse Witch, Nelson, and the Fateweaver, Domina. The rank 8 heroes were Ancient Blade, Demetrija, and Clipper. Kenji, the most promising of all, Angia, had already reached the blue rank 9 and seemed to have the potential to become a rank 10 hero. But Angia wasn't in a hurry for this and displayed a laid-back attitude. Fang Hao could only wait, providing materials when someone reached rank 10, allowing them to attempt the upgrade. After lunch, Fang Hao, Angia, and Demetrija departed. Upon casting the demon teleportation, they arrived directly at the Genbei city in the Bloody Mountain Range. The sudden appearance of the teleportation light in the city center caused quite a stir. When the 3 of them stepped out from the light, they saw the female troll Stella, accompanied by several troll guards, rushing towards them. Seeing it was Fang Hao and company, her face instantly turned serious. She quickly came forward, knelt and said, "Lord." Stella had signed a slave contract with Fang Hao. As the leader of the trolls, she managed the trolls' daily life and job distribution. But Stella didn't forget her status as a slave. Whenever she saw Fang Hao, she would salute with utmost respect. Seeing Stella salute, the troll guards nearby also knelt down one by one after another. The trolls all over the street knelt down, shouting, "Lord." "All right, Stella, stand up, and tell everyone to stand up." Fang Hao said. "Yes, Lord." Stella stood up and ordered the guards behind her to make everyone stand up. Despite this, she still kept her head lowered, looking very respectful. Fang Hao strode towards the city lord's mansion, casually saying, "You don't need to bow that much in the future." "Yes, Lord," Stella obediently answered. "Have any dwarves arrived?" Fang Hao continued to ask. "Yes, Lord, last night, a team of 1,000 arrived in the city. I have arranged accommodations for them," Stella answered. "Good, summon the dwarf leader to see me." "Yes, Lord." Stella immediately gave the order. A troll went towards the area where the dwarves reside. Inside the city lord's hall, Fang Hao, after hearing Stella's report, had gained some understanding of the recent situation in Genbei City. All in all, as Caius's ex-lover, Stella also showed considerable leadership abilities. Not only had she stabilized the trolls' emotions, several key mines had also resumed production. The only thing lacking now is that Fang Hao killed too many trolls, leading to a lack of labor on many mines. Stella explained it tactfully, fearing that Fang Hao would bluntly blame her. Of course, Fang Hao also understood the problem. He didn't say much about it. Before long, the dwarf leader Belarga and a few other dwarves strode in, walking confidently. They had the demeanor befitting of descendants of a king. Upon seeing Fang Hao sitting above, Belerga and the others were instantly taken aback. Wasn't Fang Hao at the desolate battlefield? How did he appear here? You should know that they had traveled all day yesterday and didn't arrive in Zhenbei City until late at night. If it wasn't for Fang Hao's people guiding them, the city gates wouldn't have been opened to them. Now, early in the morning, Fang Hao was sitting there. Lord! Belerga led the way in saluting, the other dwarves following suit. Bring the sand table over. Fang Hao didn't bother with small talk and directly ordered. The enormous sand table of the bloodthirsty mountain range was pushed over. On the sand table, the topographical features of the bloodthirsty mountain range, as well as the original location of the troll tribe, could be clearly seen. Fang Hao descended from the viewing platform and stood before the sand table. Belerga, these cities are all of considerable size. You might consider choosing one, Fang Hao suggested, standing to one side. The cities in front of him were all remnants of the troll tribes, although the trolls had died. The buildings within the city, including the walls and the clan leaders' hall, as well as some residential structures, were all preserved. Choosing an existing city would be much easier than building from scratch. What about this one? What do you think, my lord? Belerga, standing on tiptoe, pointed at the city behind the northern town. This city was located to the north of the northern town, in the middle position among three giant mountains. It was also a city of the Rockhead tribe. As the second largest troll tribe, the Rockhead tribe city had already reached level 5, with a good array of buildings. Although it had been trampled upon by the Undead army, restoration would be simpler than a complete rebuild, saving on materials. Of course, these were Fang Hao's thoughts. The reason Belerga chose this fortress was due to the mines in the nearby mountains. With their understanding of the mountains, the dwarves suspected that a large vein of ore lay within the mountain. Having chosen to settle in the bloodthirsty mountain range, any future dealings with the trolls would be inevitable. They needed to claim this mining vein first. Fine, make preparations and set off immediately. I'll accompany you there and help construct some of the buildings. Fang Hao agreed immediately. Very well, my lord, I will arrange everything immediately. Having said this, Belerga led his men away. Afterward, he would lead his tribe to the chosen city. In the afternoon, Fang Hao and Belerga arrived at the former city of the Rockhead tribe. The city had been ravaged by war. Many houses had collapsed, and the city gate was in severe disrepair. The only sign of cleanliness was the lack of corpses within the city. All the bodies left by the undead had been thrown into the transformation pool. Fang Hao designated this location as a subsidiary city. He named it Lycee City. This name was chosen by Belerga, presumably after the peak where they used to live. Fang Hao agreed, seeing as the dwarves lived here. Having a name they liked would also provide a sense of belonging. After appointing Belerga as the governor, Fang Hao used the Book of Lords to help them restore several special buildings. Within an hour, the entire city had reached a size where it was habitable. Thinking his abilities would amaze Belerga, who had been following closely, Fang Hao was surprised to find Belerga remaining calm. Upon asking, Fang Hao learned the dwarves had already begun having contact with the Transmigrator and had made substantial improvements to many of their weapons and equipment based on his suggestions. For example, the loading method of the firearm, which involved pouring gunpowder into the barrel then inserting a bullet, was challenged by the Transmigrator. He improved the firearm's body and bullets, bringing it closer to the effectiveness of modern firearms. This was gaining attention among the dwarven tribes, although at this stage, it was still in the testing and designing phases. However, with a clear direction for improvement, success couldn't be far away. Hearing Belerga's remarks, Fang Hao was the one who was surprised. If modern weapons were produced, they could potentially shift the dynamics of this era. Farmers equipped with firearms could possess strength comparable to that of regular troops. Even dragons might struggle to withstand the firepower. It seemed that he needed to pay more attention to this matter. Once all the buildings were completely constructed, Fang Hao continued. Belerga, where would you suggest building the Mountain Heart Grand Furnace? I would like to start construction for you as soon as possible. My lord, the Mountain Heart Grand Furnace needs to be built with the mountain as its base. I have already chosen the location. Please, follow me, Belerga stated. Fang Hao followed him to the foot of a towering mountain. This mountain was one of the 3 surrounding cities. It was also the largest of the 3. My lord, let's construct it here, Belerga stated without hesitation. The Mountain Heart Grand Furnace was fundamental to the dwarves' ability to refine ores. The construction of each grand furnace required the collective effort of several generations. Blueprints are only held by a few individuals, such as the leaders of the dwarves. The ability of a transmigrator can play a significant role at this time, because construction wouldn't require several generations of people. All it needs are the right materials. Mountain Belly Furnace. Wood 15,750, stone 1,258,850, hardened wood 27,580, fine brick 185,470, thick leather 5,435, iron 15,820, cast iron 8,575, metal parts 1,255, precision parts 420, red flame essence 22, perfect essence 10. Description. It is said that the dwarves made use of a volcano to construct a huge furnace. The flames within the forge never extinguished, making the craftsmanship of the dwarves renowned across the lands. My goodness! After seeing the required materials, Fang Hao was stunned. The materials consumed by the Mountain Belly Furnace were simply frightening. It was enough to build a city outright, especially the stone, which reached a staggering 1.2 million. The remaining materials were also consumed in large quantities, especially the precision parts. Fang Hao didn't have the blueprints for the precision parts yet. All the parts in the warehouse were obtained from defeating various constructs. They were saved bit by bit for later use in the construction of the constructs. Now, for the construction of the Mountain Belly Furnace. They were barely enough, but at this point, he couldn't afford to be parsimonious with the materials. If he were to say now that it couldn't be built, wouldn't that make these dwarves think he was unreliable? Once the location was chosen, construction began right away. In an instant, the whole mountain was enveloped in an orange glow, gradually taking on the shape of a large furnace. However, the construction had already taken over 3 hours and it would still need some more time. While waiting for the construction, Fang Hao made enough household utensils for the dwarves. Beds, chairs, and various tools. Anything he could think of. Fang Hao tried his best to fabricate for them. 3 hours passed quickly. The massive furnace, created from the heart of the mountain, appeared in front of everyone. I am heard Belarga's loyalty to you has increased by 15 points, current loyalty 80. Looking at the large furnace, Belarga's eyes sparkled with excitement and anticipation. A great furnace that it took the 8 Peaks Mountain several generations to construct. He and his followers now had one of their own. And it was brand new, belonging only to them. Mountain Belly Furnace. Category, Building. Working population, 0/450. Raw material, iron ore. Outcome, cast iron, white steel ingots, dwarf iron ingots. Fine iron ingots, 100 refined iron. 100 refined iron ingots, mithril ingots. Description. It is said that the dwarves made use of a volcano to construct a huge furnace. The flames within the forge never extinguished, making the craftsmanship of the dwarves renowned across the lands. The Mountain Belly Furnace certainly hasn't disappointed Fang Hao. It could forge various ingots, both the ones he knew of and the ones he didn't. In addition to the fine iron, there were several other types of outcomes. Not only did it meet the material requirements for the newly acquired Temple Guardian armor, but it also ensured that there would be no worries about the resources for higher-level blueprints in the future. Thank you, my lord. With the furnace, we may continue our work. Belarga continued. Well, once everyone is settled, we can resume production. I will also arrange for the ore mined in the surrounding cities to be transported here for you all to process. Understood, my lord. Belarga nodded in understanding. After helping the dwarves set up the city, Fang Hao did not linger. He activated the demon teleportation and returned directly to his territory. In the days that followed, Fang Hao rested in his territory for 3 days. The desolate battlefield had progressively transported back the spoils of war that had been excavated. The number of gold and silver utensils was simply astounding. The tribute amassed by the Lord of Thunder now benefited Fang Hao. My lord, the statue of the king has been completed. This is the stone carver, Gray, who briskly walked over. Let's go take a look, said Fang Hao as he walked towards the temple with Angia and Ira. In front of the temple stood a statue. Carved from stone, it was a likeness of Fang Hao. Standing tall and erect, it was extremely impressive. The statue of the king can be placed in the pantheon. Placing the statue of the king in each affiliated territory can collect the power of faith and improve one's divinity level. Suddenly, 2 system notifications interrupted Fang Hao's self-admiration. The statue of the king can be established in the pantheon. Statues of the king can be established in each subsidiary territory to collect power of faith and raise the level of divinity. Pantheon could be considered as an enormous temple. A regular temple can only place 2 statues. But the pantheon has no such limit. As long as the statues do not repel each other, they can be placed in the pantheon. This feature is especially inclusive. Similarly, the statue of the king can also be placed inside. By chance, Fang Hao had just acquired divinity, which can be improved by gathering the faith of the public and collecting the power of faith. Previously, he had seen that his divinity was at level 0. He had been wondering about ways to level up, only to realize now that it relied on the collection of faith to increase its level. In that case, the belief of people in his territory and the population itself became exceptionally pivotal. Without further ado, Fang Hao opened the options for the pantheon and placed the king's statue inside. The next second, the king's statue on the vacant land vanished in an instant. It directly appeared in the main hall of the pantheon. Blueprint unlocked. King's statue. King's statue, wood 320, refined stone bricks 350, iron 120, metal parts 50, mithril 5, traces of prayer 1. Description: a great leader, worshipped by his subjects. Having directly unlocked the blueprint made things more convenient. He could then share the blueprint of the king's statue, allowing each subsidiary city to establish king's statue. He could also benefit from collecting faith power to enhance his divinity. Of course, having his statues placed everywhere made him feel slightly embarrassed. However, there was no other choice. For the sake of leveling up, ever since Fang Hao had witnessed the quasi-god's power, it reminded him constantly that if he wanted to survive, he needed to keep enhancing his strength. His tactic of relying on low-ranked undead for the navy could no longer ensure an unbeatable advantage when facing quasi-god level enemies. A single skill could wipe out an entire army. This shocked Fang Hao, while simultaneously, upon acquiring divinity, stirred a sense of longing within him. Therefore, these statues of the kingdom had to be established in the subsidiary cities. Besides, he needed more subordinates. As for collecting the power of belief, every city with a large population were indigenous cities. These indigenous cities were forcibly taken over by Fang Hao, with governors appointed afterward. Thus, his own presence was not particularly significant, let alone influential. Hence, the following moves would include increasing the dedication of the city dwellers toward himself. After planning, he shared the blueprints of the temple and the statue of the king with several Transmigrated governors, and requested them to establish temples with the statue of the king in their cities. Just as he sent out the message, heated discussions sprung up among the subordinate territories. They were amazed that Fang Hao had become the king, and made all sorts of flattering compliments about the imposing and fearsome statue of Fang Hao. Meanwhile, Fang Hao also didn't idle about. He utilized the teleportation to the subordinate cities of the indigenous people. He established temples and statues in every city, and instructed all the mayors to widely propagate about himself being the king. It was not the time to keep a low profile. The subordinates, only once they recognize your strengths and believe that you can fulfill their wishes, you will gain the power of faith. After being busy for a whole day, Fang Hao returned to his territory. He visited all the subsidiary cities today. Every city's mayor was present, except Rolana, who was absent from Blood Castle. The Blood Hunter said that Rolana had stayed in Blood Castle for only 2 days before she left again. It seemed that she may have once more returned to Les City. After returning, Fang Hao visited the hot springs at night and retired for the day. The next day, after breakfast, Fang Hao activated the teleportation screen and headed directly to Grey Bear's stronghold. Grey Bear had been sent to the original territory of Qiu Zhaishang. The current stronghold was managed by the rabbit woman, Millie. Millie was a rabbit maid Fang Hao had bought from a slave trader. After taking a physical enhancing potion, she had displayed strong combat talents. Fang Hao had appointed her to Grey Bear's side to experience real combat. Millie indeed didn't disappoint Fang Hao. Her level was rapidly improving. When Grey Bear was sent away, Millie had already reached the level 7, thereby making her one of the top few fighters among the bandits. Adding to the fact that Fang Hao had close relations with Millie, she naturally became the new leader of the stronghold. When Fang Hao and the others emerged from the teleportation screen, he saw Millie, hands on hips, loudly berating her subordinates who were loafing around. Her dominant presence contrasted sharply with her petite stature and innocent, busty appearance. When she saw Fang Hao, Millie's intimidating demeanor vanished instantly. She ran over and threw herself into Fang Hao's arms, coquettishly saying, "Master, Millie missed you so much." The newly joined bandits on the side were flabbergasted. Millie, who hardly had a good temper for a single day, could actually be this coquettish. Feeling the soft body in his arms, Fang Hao gave Millie's little head a rub. "Just now, you seemed quite tough." "No, not at all. As you know, these guys only respond to a show of strength. I can't afford not to be strict." Millie was quick to justify. All the people in the stronghold were ex-bandits. Without exception. The stronger you appear, the more they'll behave. Grey Bear had been managing them similarly. Lacking this method, no one could control such a crowd. "Well, it's fine. I think you've done a good job. Pick some people to go with me to Lis City later," Fang Hao continued. "All right, master." Millie nodded. Her arms still held Fang Hao tightly, with no intention of letting go. "Go on, we're leaving soon." Under Fang Hao's urging, Millie finally let go and started gathering people. Soon, Millie assembled 20 people, and they set off for Lis City on horseback. Fang Hao chose to ride on a purple-scaled horse to Lis City instead of using teleportation. He had his own reasons for this. Lis City wasn't a city under his control, and more often than not, teleportation would end up in the city center or the city lord's mansion. Fang Hao wasn't sure if he could teleport directly into his recently purchased residence. So he chose to teleport to the Grey Bear Fortress and then ride the rest of the way, providing a proper reason for his entrance into the city. Otherwise, it would be quite difficult to explain his travel times to the Lis City authorities. By 3 in the afternoon, Fang Hao and his group had entered Lis City. First, they delivered a batch of new clothes to a clothing store. Then they headed to the city lord's manor. He had yet to claim the reward for assisting Rebecca with the faceless last time. Additionally, he wanted to build a relationship with her, which would make it easier for him to develop and conduct business in the city in the future. Under the guidance of a maid, as Fang Hao walked along the long corridor, he noticed a change. Starting from the courtyard of the city lord's manor, there were significantly more patrolling guards than before. And even this previously deserted corridor was now guarded by armed soldiers every few meters. The distance between guards was carefully arranged, so that even if a guard was at a corner, he could still see his companions to his left and right. If one of them encountered any trouble, the others would be alerted immediately. It seemed that during his absence some problem had arisen within Lis City, and this problem had threatened Rebecca's personal safety. If it could affect the ruler of a city, the situation must be quite serious. The maid led Fang Hao swiftly to a study room. She gently knocked on the door. "Madam, Mr. Fang Hao is here." "Let him in." Rebecca's voice came from inside the room. The maid opened the door. "Mr. Fang Hao, please." Fang Hao nodded and walked straight into the study. Inside the study, Rebecca, dressed in a beige gown, was sitting at her desk reviewing a stack of documents. Only when she saw Fang Hao enter did she put the documents aside. "I haven't seen you for quite a while," Rebecca began. "I was dealing with some issues. I just arrived," said Fang Hao, sitting down opposite her. Rebecca revealed a slight smile and pulled open a drawer. She pulled out a few heavy money bags and pushed them in front of Fang Hao. "This is the reward for the last mission. I've been keeping it for you." Fang Hao took it without hesitation, although the money meant nothing to him now. These gold coins were the agreed reward for their collaboration. "Has it been unsafe in the city recently? I noticed you've increased your manpower," Fang Hao asked straightforwardly. "Oh." Rebecca sighed softly, not intending to hide anything. "The day before yesterday, I was attacked on my way to a banquet. I suspect the Faceless are responsible, so I've increased my guard." The relationship between Rebecca and Fang Hao was more like friendship, although they also collaborated. Though she held the power in Lis City, she didn't have anyone she could truly trust within the city. No one could be sure where the Faceless had planted informers, but she was certain that she and Fang Hao were on the same side. After all, they had cooperated in killing quite a few Faceless. So, when her whereabouts were revealed and she was attacked, she was willing to tell Fang Hao about it. "What? They've become so bold as to dare to assassinate you?" Fang Hao was quite surprised. In the 100 Cities Federation, each city governed itself. So, essentially, each city lord was the supreme ruler in the city. The decision of the Faceless to assassinate the city lord signified a declaration of war. It was no longer a matter of secretly kidnapping residents and gathering intelligence. Don't worry, it's not a big deal, but you should also be careful in the city to avoid any danger. Rebecca gave him a word of caution. All right, I'll keep that in mind. Let me know if anything comes up. Fang Hao nodded in agreement. The two didn't talk for too long. Rebecca had many documents that needed to be reviewed, and Fang Hao also had his own matters to attend to. He left the city lord mansion while it was still early. He met up with Angia outside the gate. He hailed a carriage and directly headed to the mission hall at the east gate of the city. The mission hall was a specific place where tasks were distributed to mercenary groups. Fang Hao had previously registered his mercenary group and had received several tasks. The carriage stopped on the street, and Fang Hao led Angia straight into the hall. The hall was as bustling as ever, filled with personnel from various mercenary groups. It was already approaching dusk, and he wondered if there were still any good tasks left. Fang Hao was just trying his luck. He also took the chance to stroll around the night market in the area. Items like multi-headed fire python and undead war drum, as well as some rare resources, were all purchased from the night market. Occasionally, he would also come across some good finds. Upon reaching the counter, he asked for a list of reward tasks from the receptionist. He started to check each task one by one. After flipping through a few, a certain task caught Fang Hao's attention. Map: Demon Manor. Type: single-page map. Remark: a manor that has little contact with outsiders. A demon with huge wings on its back has been spotted, hunting any passerby. Description: a map drawn and task information posted by the Wave Mercenary Group. This was the only map that looked quite decent. It mentioned a demon with large wings on its back sighted in a manor in the wilderness. Quite a few possibilities could be derived from the description of having huge wings on the back. Because of her blood clan lineage, Rolana could also spread out her large wings, just as his demon doll could. Asserting that it was a demon based on this line of reasoning was rather far-fetched. But among all the tasks, this one seemed decent. Certainly better than tasks like accompanying a noble's son to practice swordsmanship, or investigating a man's affair. I'll take this mission, representing the Windmill Mercenary Group. Fang Hao told the staffer. All right, sir, the staffer said, registering for Fang Hao. Apart from this map, Fang Hao didn't find any other maps interesting. Lately, even tasks to wipe out mountain bandits were decreasing. Mercenaries were also facing a shortage of tasks. After completing the registration, Fang Hao left the mission hall with Angia. They visited the market outside the door to see if there was anything they needed. They stopped at a roadside stall, and Fang Hao squatted down. How much for these materials? 20 silver each, said the stall owner, without lifting his head. Okay, I'll take all of them. Fang Hao paid and collected all the materials. They continued to look around the stalls. However, in a casual glance over his shoulder, he noticed something off. He was being followed. As his strength grew, Fang Hao's senses also improved. Not far behind him, two men were squatting in front of a stall. He had seen one of them when he left the mansion, and the other had appeared across the street when he left the city lord's mansion. This was definitely not a coincidence. Even if it was, how come these two men were together again? Fang Hao's nerves instantly tensed. Rebecca's words of caution suddenly flashed in his mind. The Faceless might have already known that Fang Hao was helping Rebecca. It was highly likely that these people were arranged by the Faceless. Otherwise, he couldn't think of a second enemy who would monitor him in Lis City. With this thought in mind, Fang Hao casually draped his arm around Angia, adopting an intimate pose like a couple. Don't turn around, someone's following us. The two of them moved through the crowd without showing any unusual behavior. The two followers not far away put down the items on the stall, got up, and started to trail behind Fang Hao. It's those two men. Their strength isn't high. They should just be ordinary spies. It won't be difficult to deal with them. Angia also noticed the two men behind them. Let's go. We should find a quiet place, Fang Hao said. The two of them walked straight out of the market and turned into a dark alley. The alley was filled with rubbish and swarming with flies. Behind them, the two followers stood at the entrance of the alley, frowning as they watched the alley. The two men stood at the entrance of the alley, hesitating slightly. The person they were following had emerged from the bazaar and walked directly into the dim, deserted alley. They suspected that their target had realized he was being followed. and had deliberately chosen to head into the alley to set a trap. What do we do? One of them asked. The other one frowned, stating, we've got no choice. If we don't bring that man back, Boss Lay won't let us off the hook. Should we call for backup? There's no time. As long as we don't kill that young man, we should manage. Okay, let's do it. Both men made sure their weapons were secure at their waist, then stepped into the shadowy alley. As dusk approached, the horizon began to be tinged with a red glow. The alley darkened further. A homeless man snored loudly beside a pile of garbage. The two men quickened their pace, fearing that their target might escape from the dark alley. The quiet alley echoed with the sound of their hurried footfalls. They rounded a corner. Their footsteps abruptly halted. Ahead, two figures blocked their path. The young man and woman they had been tailing. Surprisingly, they had waited for them to arrive. After confirming that there were no other accomplices, some tension eased from within the two men. This must be a rich, spoiled heir who doesn't know better. They drew the daggers from their waist, sneering at the young couple. Fang Hao calmly looked at the two men and asked, who sent you guys? You've been tailing us all day. Fess up, then you can call it a day. What's the rush? You'll find out soon enough, one of them replied. You're not here to kill me. Fang Hao inferred from the man's words that assassination didn't seem to be their motive. You're lucky. You're worth more alive than dead. Upon hearing their answer, Fang Hao confirmed that these two men were sent by someone else to capture him. It could be the Faceless Ones, a business competitor, or that the Dragon Scale mercenaries discovered something they shouldn't have. Fang Hao quickly ran through the list of potential enemies in his mind. The abilities of these two men were not bad. They had reached the 5th tier, which in the mercenary world was considered quite skilled. But they were no match for Fang Hao and Anjia at this moment. As they saw the two men approaching with daggers in their hands, Fang Hao said to Anjia, don't kill them. I want to find out who's been tailing us. As soon as Anjia responded affirmatively, her body shot forward explosively. Like a swift shadowy streak, she was upon them in the blink of an eye. Thud, thud. 2 beating sounds later, both men were flung backward. They crashed into the wall behind them, coughing up blood. Just moments ago they seemed formidable. But in the twinkling of an eye, they had lost their combat power, unable to get up. Fang Hao walked over and addressed the men. Tell me, who sent you? If you speak, you can live. The men's faces were bone white, and they couldn't stop coughing up blood. They never expected that the young businessman's besteared maid possessed such combat power. We admit defeat in this matter. Let us go, and you'll never see us again. One of them said weakly, clutching his chest. This almost made Fang Hao laugh. He'd come up with a good idea, had failed to assassinate someone, but now acted as if they were playing by some rules of the underworld. There's no such easy deal in the world. You've already attacked me. Do you think I'll let you walk away just like that? One last time, who sent you? Fang Hao continued. You'd better not pry. This isn't something you should. Fang Hao, exasperated, waved his hand. Anjia, wearing tiger's claw, punched the man twice on the nose. He choked on his words, and with a twitch of his eyes, he passed out. Fang Hao squatted down in front of the second man, picked up his fallen dagger, and held it against the man's throat. Who sent you? The cold dagger made the man shiver. I'll be killed if I tell. The man's voice trembled. If you don't tell, you'll die right now. Fang Hao reminded him impassively. The man saw the miserable state of his companion next to him, gritted his teeth, and blurted. It was Lei Lai. If we can capture you, our debt will be wiped clean, and we'll receive a hefty reward. Lei Lai saw it was him. It seemed that while Fang Hao was gone, there were indeed changes within the Faceless One's circle. Not only had Lei Lai targeted Rebecca, but he had also figured out that Fang Hao was the external support behind Rebecca. Are there others? Fang Hao continued his interrogation. I'm not sure, but I think there might be others. Boss Lei Lai never lacks pawns or resources, the man said. Lei Lai was a big figure in the underworld. He controlled a large portion of various entertainment industries. He never ran short of minions and enforcers. Even people like the man in front of him, who were deeply in debt, were plentiful under his control. All right, I'm satisfied with your answer. I'll let you off this time. But if you dare show your face in front of me again, it won't end as simply as it did today, Fang Hao said, tossing the dagger aside. Why yes, thank you, sir. The man immediately kneeled on the ground, knocking his forehead on the floor twice in thanks. As for the other obstinate man, Fang Hao ordered Anjia to break his limbs. The alley was instantly filled with agonized wailing. The sound woke the homeless man from his slumber and frightened away the rats foraging for food. Fang Hao lost interest in continuing his leisurely stroll after he left the alleyway. After climbing into his carriage, he headed directly back to his place. After dinner, when he returned to his room, he found someone already seated inside, awaiting him. It was Little Yu, back to her original form. Sir. Little Yu broke the silence. Fang Hao had her stationed with Lei Lai, using her to gather information for him. It was for this very reason that, despite killing many faceless people for Rebecca, he had never touched Lei Lai. This time around, Little Yu would hopefully have intelligence he was unaware of. Little Yu, what news do you have this time? Fang Hao asked directly. Little Yu sat down and reported. Sir, 2 days ago a leader of the Faceless arrived. They held an emergency meeting and hatched a plan to assassinate Rebecca. Previously, Little Yu had mentioned that the Faceless intended to bring someone special over. It seemed this special person was the very leader she spoke of. Who is this person? Is their identity ascertainable? Fang Hao continued to press. Little Yu shook her head. This individual is stronger than me. My attempts to spy on them failed as they found me out each time. However, judging by their stature, it is highly probable that they are a woman. Fang Hao had seen Little Yu's espionage and tracking skills firsthand. Her skill of blending into the shadows made her immensely difficult to detect. Given that this individual noticed Little Yu's surveillance attempts, they could be essentially considered a hero. This exposed Little Yu to considerable danger. I see. No need to go back to the Faceless anymore. Just to be safe. Fang Hao advised after some thought. Understood, sir. Little Yu nodded in agreement. They continued their conversation for some time, sharing more details. And then Little Yu left Fang Hao's room. Left alone in his room, Fang Hao sat on the edge of his bed. Considering his subsequent strategies, his identity had been revealed. However, he still couldn't confirm the identity of the Faceless. While he remained exposed to the public eye, the Faceless were lurking in the shadows, monitoring his every move. During these few days of his stay in Lis City, he needed to be extra careful. The night deepened and he went to bed, sinking into a heavy sleep. The following morning, after breakfast, Fang Hao led a group of people out of Lis City. Although the Faceless posed a threat, the protection of several heroes assured his safety, especially after gaining divinity. His personal strength had also been significantly improved. He felt bold enough to confront a few assassins. Today's mission was to explore the Demon Manor, the mercenary mission they had picked up yesterday from the mission hall. The group advanced towards their destination. Anjia, there were 2 women fighting over a man at the entrance of the tavern yesterday. A lot of people were gawking. Millie, the rabbit woman mounted on her horse, told Anjia sitting next to her. Really? Why didn't you let me know? What were they fighting over? The dull journey made Anjia instantly interested. They were arguing over a man, it seems. Millie replied. Was the fight intense? It got intense. They were pulling hair and ripping clothes. People from the tavern came out to watch the spectacle. A big crowd had gathered. Millie went on. There were not many things that could make drunkards put down their drinks to join the crowd. However, 2 women ripping each other's clothes off would captivate many men's interest. How did it end? Anjia asked. Later, the patrol guards came and took the 2 women and the man away. I heard from others that they were fighting because the man apparently was trying to seduce another's husband. That's why they were fighting today. Millie continued. Ah, is that so? Just for that. What's the big deal about it? Anjia commented. Exactly. Besides, the guy looks ugly with yellow teeth. I have no idea what there is to fight over. Millie added. In the Orc tribe, the clan leader and the elders within the tribe all had numerous women, like the previous Frostwind tribe. Every year they required women from the affiliated tribes as offerings. In the dictionary of the Orcs, the strong could rightfully obtain more resources and rights of reproduction. Everything bowed to the strong. Although Anjia and Millie resembled humans in appearance and were somewhat neglected within the Orc society, their understanding of societal concepts remained Orcish. They began discussing issues about men and women. On the other side, Fang Hao and Demetrija were also deeply engrossed in their whisper chat. They discussed the redeployment of generals in various places. With no wars existing in the territory now, the heroes in all places needed to be reconfigured. In order to effectively utilize the heroes, the team moved forward. Around 10 in the morning, suddenly, a flurry of footsteps could be heard from the front. Demetrija immediately ordered a defensive formation. Several mercenaries-dressed individuals appeared, their gear disarrayed. They fled in panic, frequently glancing back. Bang! The soft twang of a crossbow string. An arrow pinned itself right next to the foot of one of the running mercenaries. Stop right there. Drop your weapons. Millie called out. It was then that the mercenaries realized a well-equipped team blocked their path. About 20 crossbows aimed at them from a distance. The warning couldn't have been clearer. No, nowhere from the Rattlesnake mercenary group. We mean no harm, just passing through. One of them stammered, slowly laying down their weapon on the ground. The dozen or so mercenaries behind him also dropped their weapons. But they still occasionally looked back, as if worried someone was chasing them. The Rattlesnake mercenary group, among the mercenaries in Liss City, was a mid to low tier team. Besides the main team, which boasted a few skilled hands, the rest of the squads were made up of new recruits. The person in front of them, even if he was part of the Rattlesnake mercenary group, would only belong to a subgroup. What are you doing here? Millie moved her horse forward a few steps and asked loudly. She indeed had the demeanor of a leader. The Rattlesnake mercenaries seemed confused by the situation before them. The group was primarily humans, but the one questioning them was a girl with rabbit ears. Especially her baby-faced appearance, coupled with the bandit-like manner, created a peculiar incongruity. Miss, we were on a task we had picked up from the hall and were ambushed along the way, replied the Rattlesnake mercenary group's captain. They indeed looked like they were fleeing. Did you take up the Demon Manor task? Fang Hao asked. The Rattlesnakes hesitated, quickly realizing that these people were also here for the same task. Yes. The Rattlesnake's captain hastily nodded. Tell me about the danger you encountered, Fang Hao continued. Given they had the same task, Fang Hao was curious about the enemy the others had encountered that scared them off. They were thoroughly frightened but were able to escape unscathed. Though they looked miserable, we were attacked by a demon while we were approaching. It killed our horses, and had been chasing us since then, replied one of the Rattlesnakes. Some of them even pointed to claw marks on their armors as proof of the assailants' brutality. Did you reach the manor? No, we were attacked on the way. To avoid casualties, I led the team to retreat. The Rattlesnake's captain explained. What did this demon look like? Fang Hao asked after some thought. It had a pair of huge wings, and it's very familiar with the terrain here, replied the Rattlesnake's captain. Other squad members also continued to add to the description. Some mentioned seeing horns on its head, while others recalled a long tail when the horses were swooped away. In any case, from their disjointed descriptions, Fang realized that they hadn't really seen the demon's true appearance and had fled in panic after the attack. Any guess of its power level? Fang Hao asked further. It's a demon. It must at least possess the strength of a hero-tiered entity. The Rattlesnake members hastily replied. Fang nodded but didn't ask further. Clearly, these people were too preoccupied with escaping. All right, you may leave, Fang suggested. Oh yes, thank you, sir. The Rattlesnake members nodded in agreement and left from the side of the team, quickly heading towards Liss City. Once certain they had truly left, the group set off again, continuing their journey towards the Demon Manor. With Demetrija and Angia present, their safety could be assured. The group proceeded, entering a forest. At the front of the forest, Fang Hao and others discovered traces of blood and signs of combat. This must have been where the Rattlesnakes were attacked, they presumed. However, they saw neither the weapons the attackers had discarded nor any dead horses. Neither did they find any enemies nearby. Beyond the dense forest, a mansion with walls covered with vibrant flowers appeared. It was precisely the location of the Demon Manor on the map. By cross-checking with the map, they could confirm that this was indeed the location of the Demon Manor. The group approached, and just as Fang Hao was about to send out the skeleton sparrow to scout the mansion, the heavy iron gate slowly opened, and a figure cloaked in a black robe stepped out. Mr. Fang Hao, what brings you here? Fang Hao looked up in confusion. At the gate stood a familiar figure clad in a black cloak, half-demon alchemist. It was him. If I remember correctly, I bumped into him selling homemade potions near the mission hall. Since then, he has often brought his homemade potions to the hot pot restaurant. They didn't interact much, but they were still partners in a sense. Lately, Fang Hao has been producing glass bottles and providing them to him. The containers for potions had changed from clay pots to glass bottles. So it's you. Fang Hao revealed a small smile. Fang Hao didn't know his name, but the half-demon found out Fang Hao's name through various means. After all, it wasn't difficult to find information since Fang Hao owned some properties in the city. Yes, what brings Mr. Fang Hao here? The half-demon continued to ask. I was just passing by and on my way. I met some mercenaries running for their lives. They mentioned that they encountered monsters attacking them. And I found my way here, said Fang Hao softly. The half-demon's eyes shifted quickly, immediately picking up on something. Seeing that he had nothing to say, Fang Hao continued, Aren't you going to invite us in? Of course, gentlemen, please come in. The half-demon was quite welcoming, stepping aside to indicate that they could enter the mansion. The mansion had some flowers and plants. A few horses were tied to the wooden stakes at the side, and some packages were thrown on the ground. It seemed to be the belongings of the fleeing mercenaries. Fang Hao, Angia, and Demetrija followed the half-demon into the hall. The rest waited outside. The arrangement in the hall was simple. There were very ordinary wooden tables and chairs. Few plain-looking paintings hung on the wall. The three of them sat down at the table and chairs. The half-demon brought over some fruits. Do you live in this large mansion alone? Fang Hao found a topic and asked. My mother and I stay here. She should be back soon, replied the half-demon. Do you work in Lis City? Yes. Well, this place is quite a distance from Lis City. Fang Hao and the half-demon chatted casually. The two had interacted a few times prior. The half-demon was pretty easygoing with others, but he was very careful and protective when it comes to humans. Always extremely cautious. The half-demon took the three of them around his mansion, including his room where he usually read and made alchemical potions. As soon as they returned to the hall after the tour, a heated argument could be heard from the front yard. Fang Hao and the rest stepped out, seeing an old woman sternly pointing at arresting Millie and her subordinates. Mother, these are Mr. Fang Hao's subordinates. The half-demon hurriedly explained upon seeing the woman. The woman turned around, relieved to see her son was safe, and then noticed Fang Hao at her side. Similarly, Fang Hao also caught sight of the woman. Miriam, Tier 10 priest. It was someone Fang Hao was acquainted with. She was Miriam, Lis City's temple master priest, an old woman known to be cold and indifferent. All the assistant priests in the temple were afraid of her. Master Miriam greeted Fang Hao with a smile. The temple's master priest was the half-demon's mother. This was far beyond Fang Hao's expectations. Speaking of which, he owed the temple 150 sets of priests' robes. All of them had been brought over this time and stored in the bone clothing store. He hadn't had the chance to deliver them to the temple yet. Why you are here? Miriam's wrinkled face showed no trace of pleasantry. Ah, just passing by, answered Fang Hao. Of course, such a response wouldn't convince Miriam. Their mansion was in a remote location. No merchant routes passed here, and the location didn't lead to any city. Obviously, he had not just happened to be passing by. Miriam observed Fang Hao and the others for a good while before entering the room with the half-demon's assistants. She sat down on a nearby chair. Miriam then instructed. Baccarat, I brought home some milk tea. Why don't you brew it for the guests? Baccarat must be the half-demon's name. All right, mother. The half-demon glanced at Fang Hao, took the delivered pack, and walked toward a side room. Only after the half-demon left. Mr. Fang Hao, what is the purpose of your visit? Miriam asked again. We received a bounty saying that a demon lives in this mansion, so we brought soldiers over to check. Fang Hao told the truth. The moment the word demon came out, Miriam's gaze underwent a noticeable change. It was much more stern, with a hint of severity. Did you find it? We found some clues. On the way, we saw several fleeing mercenaries who were attacked by demons. More people will likely come here to look for evidence of demons after we return. Fang Hao replied. Before long, the talk of demons would spread throughout the city. Then many more mercenary guilds would come to explore. It was only a matter of time before they found this place. Miriam's face grew increasingly grave. She clearly understood that Fang Hao was trying to warn her about something. Do you know Baccarat? Asked Miriam, continuing the conversation. She did not allow Baccarat to have contact with humans, but it was clear her son did not listen to her. We've worked together a few times. Work together? Miriam grew more curious. Baccarat has a high talent for alchemy. The potions he makes are very effective. And I have been buying and using them. Fang Hao answers truthfully. There was really no need to conceal this matter. Telling the truth would only affirm that Fang Hao meant no harm to Miriam and her son. As expected, on hearing Fang Hao's response, Miriam seemed much more relaxed. She certainly knew about Baccarat's alchemy business on normal days. But she was not aware of his trips to Lis City. Just when Miriam was about to ask some more, the half-demon Baccarat returned carrying a few cups of milk tea. He politely placed the milk tea in front of Fang Hao and the others. Having guests at home was a rare event for a half-demon like Baccarat, who rarely went out. It was a rare lively day for him. Noticing that everyone had stopped talking, Fang Hao changed the topic. Priestess Miriam, I am planning to train some skilled herbalists and midwives for my territories. I was wondering if they could be sent to the temple for further training. Fang Hao had set up temples in all his subsidiary territories and had set up statues of the king in the temples. So, he thought of training some assistant priests, using the temples as a function of hospitals. Although herbal medicine didn't have a significant effect like alchemical potions, it was more suitable for civilians because of its affordability and easy production. Later, the assistant priests in the temple could treat injuries and deliver babies in the name of the king, which would gather more faith for Fang Hao. This was part of Fang Hao's plan when he set up the temples. Now that he had the opportunity, he simply mentioned it to Miriam. Miriam was surprised by Fang Hao's proposal. She initially thought Fang Hao was just a young master of a merchant family with some businesses. However, she didn't expect him to have his own territories and temples. But after some careful thought, it made sense. It wasn't surprising for a person like Fang Hao, who had both wealth and manpower, to have his own territory. Yes, you can bring them to the temple when the time comes, Miriam agreed. The temple provided food and lodging to the assistant priests, but it did not provide any wages. So, there were no restrictions on the number of assistant priests who would come over. Good, I'll arrange for people to come over, Fang Hao replied with a nod. After a few more casual talk, Fang Hao stood up and said, It's getting late. We won't bother you any longer. There might be more mercenaries coming later. It might be best to stay somewhere else for a while. Miriam and the half-demon both understood the meaning in Fang Hao's words. They slightly nodded but did not give a direct response. Fang Hao and the others left the hall and returned to Lis City the same way they came. The group returned empty-handed just like they left. One could say that today's trip was fruitless. The demon the mercenaries mentioned is Baccarat, right? Angia spoke up. Fang Hao hadn't told her about the half-demon, but from the conversation, she managed to garner some information. Yes, Baccarat is a half-demon. That's why he always carries that black coat wherever he goes. I observed the manor and didn't find any traces of demons. Baccarat must be the demon those mercenaries were talking about, Fang Hao explained. Only then did Angie understand why Fang Hao wanted to tour the manor. He was confirming whether there were other demons present. No wonder I was wondering why he, like a vampire, has to hide during the day. Angia slapped her thigh and said, the return trip was not as easy as the journey there. All of them hastened their steps, hurrying back in the direction of Lis City. With the arrival of autumn, the nightfall was getting earlier. They needed to return to Lis City before the city gates were closed, or else they would have to spend the night outside the city. Just before dusk, Fang Hao and the others returned to Lis City. After returning to their mansion and having dinner, Fang Hao laid on his bed, eating the fruit the maid had brought him. Ting! Just then, a private chat notification tone came from the Book of Lords. Fang Hao opened the private chat channel and found a message from Dong Jiayu. So far, the army led by the Black Sword was still excavating and recovering the desolate battlefield. Apart from digging into the collapsed temple, the entire dark red land was filled with the leftover weapons and equipment from the dead bodies of the former army. Dong Jiayu was in charge of supporting the rear, commanding human soldiers, and preparing lots of carriages and ropes. He opened the private chat content. Brother Hao, we've collected tens of thousands of severely damaged equipment from the desolate battlefield. Where should we send them? It turned out that she was asking where to send the equipment. Send them to Zhenbei City in the Bloody Mountain Range. I'll have people in Zhenbei City transport them to the dwarves. Fang Hao replied after some thought. Okay. And Brother Hao, some of the city lords on the way have contacted me. They also want to join our territories. Don't worry, I already told them not to disclose any information about us. Dong Jiayu continued. From Dong Jiayu city to the desolate battlefield. Along the way, you can encounter several cities of transmigrators. Moreover, in the last couple of days, the undead have been continuously transporting equipment outward. So these lords naturally arrange for staff to investigate the situation. When they find out that Dong Jiayu is in the undead army, it's easy for them to associate it with Fang Hao. Therefore, for various reasons, they contacted Dong Jiayu one after the other, hoping to join Fang Hao's territory. You're responsible for them. Remember to have them avoid talking nonsense in the channel and focus on developing agriculture. Fang Hao contemplated and replied. As his territory develops, he would engage more and more transmigrators. Given the transmigrators' habit of hitching a ride, there would be more people joining his territory by then. As the number of people increases, Fang Hao wouldn't be able to manage it all by himself. This leads to another feature after establishing a kingdom. Appointing city lords. Fang Hao can appoint administrators within a certain area to be city lords. The Book of Lords for these city lords can restore the power to absorb and take control of the administrative right to their areas. As a result, Fang Hao wouldn't need to manage every city. He only needs to manage the city lords of each area. This feature significantly avoids the situation where he can't manage all the cities after expanding his territory. The task has been assigned, and each area will handle its own distribution. Understood, Brother Hao. Dong Jiayu directly received the notice of being appointed as a city lord. She instantly understood Fang Hao's thoughts. At the same time, she felt overjoyed at being made a city lord, which is akin to a promotion. It was a level higher than the ordinary new members. And thoroughly check those people too. Don't be lenient with those who have bad intentions, Fang Hao added. Transmigrators also come in all types. Understood, Brother Hao. Dong Jiayu responded once again. After ending their conversation, Fang Hao continued to eat his fruit and browse through the books he bought from a stall. Although they weren't any special skill books, they still recorded some information about this continent. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, a flurry of running steps sounded from outside the window. Fang Hao has been here for 2 days. During these 2 days, it was common to see armies on the street carrying out tasks. This indicated that Rebecca received new information and was capturing the faceless in the city. As Fang Hao's collaboration with Rebecca was discovered, she stopped assigning tasks to Fang Hao's people and adopted a more extreme approach, searching for the faceless throughout the city. This included a retaliation for the assassination attempt on Rebecca. Rebecca reminded Fang Hao to leave the city for a while to avoid retaliation from the faceless. However, Fang Hao wasn't that worried about assassination. His dwelling place might not have as many soldiers as the city lord's mansion, but it was guarded by 4 heroes: Demetrija, Angia, Little Yu, and Rolana. Moreover, since he now possessed divinity, his strength greatly improved, which was enough to ensure his safety within the city. Even if Rebecca massed an army to kill him, he would have ample time to perform a demon teleportation and return to his territory. Unless an orange-ranked or higher assassin came after him, there was virtually no chance of keeping him here. Fang Hao opened the window and looked down. He saw a group of silver-armored soldiers running past under his window, disappearing at the end of the road. As the soldiers disappeared at the end of the road, a familiar figure was revealed: Rolana. Although she was far away and dressed in androgynous attire, Fang Hao still recognized her. Why is she going out so late? Last time, Fang Hao followed Rolana when he became suspicious of her movements. He found out she went into the city lord's mansion. This made Fang Hao curious about Rolana's relationship with the city lord's mansion. He turned around, opened his backpack, and released the skeleton gray sparrow. The sparrow flew out from the window, following Rolana from a distance. Tracking a person is not a glorious task. However, Rolana's unusual behavior recently made Fang Hao suspicious about her activities. After some consideration, he decided to find out where she was going and what she was up to. The skeleton sparrow followed her from afar, just keeping her within sight, careful not to get too close. The power of a dark gold level hero necessitated extra caution, especially if that hero belonged to the esteemed dark gold level blood clan and walked under the moonlight. Rolana strolled down the empty streets as if she was merely out for a walk. Recently, the streets were filled with troops on patrol. There seemed to be fewer drunks and vagabonds. Eventually, Rolana arrived at the city lord's mansion. The servants opened the gates and welcomed Rolana inside. So she did come to the city lord's mansion after all. Fang Hao flew up high, his line of sight crossing over the stone walls of the mansion, watching as the servants escorted Rolana to the garden on one side of the mansion. Fang Hao was familiar with that place. Rebecca often sat by the lake on a swing seat, reading. Since Rolana did not enter any buildings, Fang Hao circled around in the air before finally landing on top of Stone Castle. Overseeing the courtyard from high above, Rolana walked through the flower bushes, moving towards the lakeside. Rebecca, donned in a casual flowing white gown, was already waiting there on the swing seat. Upon seeing Rolana arrive, she greeted her with a warm smile on her face. From their interaction, it was clear that Rolana and Rebecca were close, despite not knowing what they were talking about. Fang Hao could see the smiles on their faces. They seemed like close girlfriends, chatting about the latest gossip. Fang Hao watched from the rooftop for a while. Then he planned to leave. Rolana's past was not a pleasant one, so finding a confidant, a close friend she could pour her heart out to, was a good thing. Furthermore, Rebecca's scholarly and virtuous character meant she wouldn't lead Rolana astray. If anything, it was more concerning Rolana might corrupt Rebecca instead. Having settled his thoughts, Fang Hao was just about to take off when he saw Rolana sit down on the swing seat, cuddling up with Rebecca. Although they continued their conversation, the atmosphere felt strange to Fang Hao. Rolana was tall and leggy, an absolute rarity among the vampire beauties. In comparison, Rebecca embodied the charm of mature womanhood, voluptuous and radiating an aura of sophistication and elegance. The sight was indeed quite pleasing to the eyes. Only when the night grew thick did Rolana rise to leave. She kissed Rebecca softly on the forehead, like a graceful gentleman, and followed the servants out of the city lord's mansion. Once outside the mansion, Rolana didn't hurry off. Instead, she circled around the mansion and killed 2 assassins lurking in the shadows. It seemed that Rolana had been protecting Rebecca for some time now. Now aware of Rolana's motives, Fang Hao had the skeleton sparrow fly far from Rolana's sight before heading home. The skeleton sparrow zipped in through the window, and Fang Hao deactivated God's presence. He ignited the nightstone lantern and prepared to rest in bed. Shortly afterward, he heard footsteps in the courtyard. It appeared that Rolana had returned. The next morning, Fang Hao saw Rolana at the dining table. She was once again dressed in unisex clothing, but her mood was visibly better that day, occasionally chatting about local gossip with Angia and Millie. "You need something?" Rolana looked at Fang Hao. Since they began eating, she felt Fang Hao's gaze upon her. "You seem to be in a good mood lately. Got any good news to share?" Fang Hao asked while eating. Everything he saw yesterday still felt rather unreal. If she had caught a human to use as a blood slave, or gone berserk and destroyed the temple, he would have found those within his expectations. But Rolana's change in sexual preference came as a surprise to Fang Hao. Of course, the scene involving 2 enchanting beauties did have a certain appeal. If it had involved 2 burly, bearded men kissing, he probably wouldn't have been able to eat for several days. "Nothing really. Is there something you want to tell me?" Rolana asked curiously. Perhaps because she had a secret, Rolana, typically proud and aloof, now seemed a bit evasive with her eyes. "I'll be going back to my territory for a few days. If you're going to stay here, look after Rebecca. She's been targeted by the Faceless, and she doesn't really have anyone capable around her," said Fang Hao casually, leaning back on his chair. Rolana furrowed her eyebrows, looking at Fang Hao with suspicion. "You want me to stay in Lis City, looking after Rebecca? What's wrong? I'm not assigning you tasks, just looking after a friend. After all, Rebecca's been good to us," Fang Hao continued. "The beauty of the lonely night. Rolana and Tobias's loyalty towards you increased by 10 points. Current loyalty is 40. In an instant, Rolana's loyalty towards him increased by 10 points. Caught off guard by the sudden spike, Fang Hao almost lost his balance and fell off his chair. Even when he had gifted her the bone dragon, relocated the citizens of her domain, the increment had only been meager. As their lord, he owed her the favor of resurrection, but he didn't hold much credibility in Rolana's eyes. When he had asked her to stay back and oversee the medicinal herb planting by the residents in Blood Castle, she didn't listen, handed the task to the Blood Hunter, and came to Lis City instead. After learning about the relationship between Rolana and Rebecca, Fang Hao casually made a comment and instantly increased his loyalty points by 10. "I can do that." Rolana's cheeks turned slightly red. "Remember, you also have to take care of matters at Blood Castle. You can't always leave it to the blood hunter. Fang Hao continued. I know, I will return when I have the time. Rolana replied promptly without ignoring his words. With that, Fang Hao began to develop an idea. Perhaps he could boost Rolana's loyalty by exploiting her connection with Rebecca. They chatted while eating. Breakfast soon ended. Fang Hao then took his team to the Bone Textile store and the enjoyable hot pot restaurant. They checked out the recent business and made a list of needed supplies. By the time they returned in the afternoon, they saw a carriage from the city lord's mansion parked at their own residence. The city lord's maid was already waiting in the hall. Millie was chatting her up in a bandit style. On seeing Fang Hao, both of them stood up and bowed. Mr. Fang Hao, Rebecca's maid greeted with a small curtsy. She had brought messages to Fang Hao before and was one of the few trusted people by Rebecca's side. Yes, what brings you here? Fang Hao asked with a smile. Mr. Fang Hao, Lady Rebecca invites you, the maid continued. Oh, sure, Fang Hao agreed. Taking his team, Fang Hao left the residence and rode the carriage towards the city lord's mansion. In a short while, in the courtyard, he saw Rebecca who was waiting for him. Lady Rebecca, you wanted to see me? Fang Hao approached and asked gently. Rebecca was dressed in a kipao produced by the Bone Textile store. The form-fitting design accentuated her voluptuous figure. It seemed Rebecca had just returned from a soiree. Otherwise, she wouldn't dress so formally at home. Ah, a lot happened in the city last night. The guards found a hideout. I wanted you to identify something, Rebecca said softly. Fang Hao glanced at Rebecca. Indeed, a lot had happened last night. If he hadn't seen it himself, he wouldn't have believed it. All right, Fang Hao answered. Rebecca nodded and without changing, followed Fang Hao out. Demetrija and Angia were waiting outside the bathhouse. Seeing Fang Hao emerge, they immediately trailed behind. Although Rebecca was a commoner, she had a keen eye. Seeing the golden-armored lizardman, she knew he was a formidable hero. Over time, Rebecca found it harder and harder to discern Fang Hao's secrets. Especially recently, when she heard a new term from the arrested faceless, Transmigrator, a term used to denote outsiders who arrived in this land unexpectedly. Among them was Fang Hao. Once she confirmed that Fang Hao was a Transmigrator. All the novel designs and odd principles made sense. It was easy to see why such a young man could have so many ideas. But now, seeing the golden-armored lizardman, Fang Hao brought her a new mystery. A powerful hero serving as a minion was not something you could have by being clever. Maybe Fang Hao was more powerful than she imagined. Ah, Demetrija, Angia, this is Lady Rebecca. Fang Hao noticed Rebecca's gaze and immediately introduced her. The two greeted politely but without real respect. Fang Hao then introduced his companions to Rebecca. These two are my companions. They are responsible for my safety when I go out. As you know, I'm not skilled in combat. Rebecca gave him a disdainful look but didn't comment. They rode in the carriage, heading towards the northern side of the city. Shortly, they arrived at a building guarded by soldiers. They got out of the carriage and directly entered the building. The moment Fang Hao stepped in, his eyebrows furrowed. 6 bodies lay on the ground, causally covered with straw mats. Fang Hao suddenly had a bad feeling. These are the bodies that the guards found yesterday. Can you identify whether these people came from the same place as you? Rebecca asked. Fang Hao didn't refute. Instead, he stepped forward and lifted the straw mats from 2 bodies, revealing their black hair. Demetrija uncovered the straw mats from the rest of the bodies. Without exception, all the faces were Asian. What happened? Fang Hao asked, his voice heavy. Rebecca replied. They were found in a basement. When the guards arrived, these people were already dead. Judging from the evidence, it's the faceless doing. This is not the first time. Fang Hao narrowed his eyes, anger swelling in his heart. He knew about the faceless targeting transmigrators. Part of the reason he helped Rebecca deal with the faceless was to take revenge as a transmigrator. But it's been a while since last time. He didn't expect to see the bodies of transmigrators again. They survived hunger and didn't die from foreign invasions or plunder. But they died at the hands of other humans. He didn't feel pity for these dead people, but he felt an indescribable anger and frustration. The bastards targeted the transmigrators and treated them as prey. Any clues? Swallowing his anger, Fang Hao asked again. Rebecca shook her head. None, not a single one. This was also what Rebecca was worried about. All of her trump cards were exposed in front of the faceless, and she could not gain more information about them through her own means anymore. This turned her into a target. even suspecting that the other side was plotting a much bigger scheme. I can give you a piece of information, Fang Hao said. Startled, Rebecca moved to a corner with Fang Hao. What information? Lei Lai, he is one of the faceless, said Fang Hao calmly. Lei Lai? Rebecca frowned deeply, her face reflecting a look of disbelief. She naturally knew who Lei Lai was. The underground boss of West City, who owned many businesses in West City on the surface, and was also the gang leader of the underworld. Flesh trade, gambling, loan sharking, every business had his involvement. But likewise, getting rid of Lei Lai was not a simple matter. Such a desperate man, once caused trouble in the city, would be harder to deal with than any noble or merchant. How do you know? Rebecca asked further. The day before yesterday, after leaving you, I was attacked by 2 assassins. I got the information from them, Fang Hao continued. He naturally couldn't reveal Little Yu's affairs, and could only say that he got the news from the assassins. Can you confirm? I can, Fang Hao answered. Rebecca was silent for a moment. We need to reconsider Lei Lai. I will handle this matter. Don't reveal this. All right, Fang Hao nodded in agreement. Killing Lei Lai wouldn't be difficult, but the aftermath of Lei Lai's death required meticulous planning. Otherwise, it would create a lot of chaos. All right, you've seen him, let's talk while we walk. Rebecca led Fang Hao out. On leaving the building, both remained silent. Not until they were in the carriage did Rebecca continue. So, the information about the Transmigrators is true. You're from another world. Yes, Fang Hao answered truthfully. Having this conversation felt a bit strange. Even if Fang Hao wanted to say more, he didn't know how to explain their world to Rebecca. If it were him, and a new group arrived claiming they were Transmigrators or aliens, he would call the police without wasting a second word with them. What are the faceless up to by capturing you? Rebecca continued to ask. Perhaps they're curious about our world. After all, you know that we possess a lot of knowledge that you don't have. These might be what the faceless want to know, Fang Hao said. Rebecca nodded, indicating she understood. I will send people to keep probing for information on the faceless. You should be careful too, Rebecca cautioned once again. Yes, I got it, Fang Hao replied. The carriage pulled in front of the Lord's house, and Rebecca returned. The carriage then continued to carry Fang Hao and the others back to their residence. On the way back, Fang Hao was mulling over the issue of the faceless. With Angia and Demetrija always by his side, and Rolana and Little Yu at the residence, assassination attempts on him by the faceless seemed impossible. However, the other Transmigrators apparently hadn't escaped the clutches of the faceless. What exactly should be done to completely eliminate all these people? It was a troublesome issue. For now, there was no choice but to investigate, bit by bit, and find these people slowly. 3 days later, Fang Hao returned to his territory. Inside the main hall of the Lord's Manor, a goblin and a few elf representatives had been waiting for some time. As the morning broke, Moru the goblin teller arrived at the realm with the fairy clan's people. Ira informed Fang Hao the moment they arrived. To avoid any special circumstances occurring in the city while Fang Hao wasn't present, by the time Fang Hao returned to the city through the teleportation array, dense rows of skeleton soldiers had tightly surrounded the manor. Even though Fang Hao and his entourage returned at the earliest time possible, long-waiting Moru and the fairy sat apprehensively in their chairs, their faces tense, without even having gone to the washroom. They feared their strange behavior would prompt these vigilant undead to attack them. On his return, Fang Hao became aware of the trade alliance's lapse in teleportation security. Next time when he has to leave, he needs to turn off the trade alliance's teleportation to prevent anyone from directly entering the city through teleportation. Upon seeing Fang Hao stride towards the manor, Moru immediately lit up with joy. Mr. Fang Hao, you're finally back. The petite figure immediately sprung up from his seat. Seeing Fang Hao was more exciting than seeing his deceased grandfather. Ah, Mr. Moru, I've been delayed due to some matters, Fang Hao explained with a smile. Simultaneously, his gaze landed on the few fairies waiting aside. Aside from a few fairy guards, the lead one appears as a treat, but her body lines and the prominent chest make her image lean more towards the female character. Heart of the Deep Forest, Shinasara Orange Tier 9 hero. On seeing her name and attributes, Fang Hao was taken aback. He didn't expect the once declined fairy that Moru spoke of would delegate an Orange Tier 9 hero for negotiations. Apparently, even after the decline, the former fairy clan still has a profound appeal. Fang Hao felt skeptical, if the other party was trying to intimidate him by letting the Tier 9 hero negotiate. Mr. Fang Hao, I am the leader of the fairy clan, Shinasara. I came here particularly because of the previous incident. Shinasara stood up and performed a human courtesy. Fang Hao knitted his brows. The plant person in front of him was actually the fairy clan's leader. Hello, leader Shinasara. Fang Hao replied, taking a seat aside. Anjia and Demetrija also stood behind Fang Hao. Shinasara gave a nod and continued. Regarding the incident that happened last time at the Alliance's outpost. On behalf of the Dreamy Forest, I apologize. I failed to restrain my subordinates and caused trouble for you. The fairy clan took a very humble stance. After all, the two fairies who robbed Fang Hao were still locked in the Trade Alliance's jail. According to the Trade Alliance's rules, in order to get them out, they first need Fang Hao's forgiveness. Such forgiveness, however, comes at a cost. This incident indeed caused me trouble. Fang Hao spoke up, since they tried to rob him at the Alliance's outpost. If Rolana hadn't been present that day, it would have been difficult to resolve. Of course, he wouldn't let the fairy clan off easily, even if an orange Tier 9 hero was who they sent. Mr. Fang Hao, this apology from our fairy clan has come with a gift. We hope you can forgive those two children. They are impulsive and did not consider the consequences of their actions. Also, the Dreamy Forest hopes to befriend you, Shinasara went on. While she was speaking, a few fairy guards behind her placed two heavy wooden boxes in front of Fang Hao. Once opened, they were filled with a large number of gold coins and some rare materials and gemstones. With his past experience of looting, he managed to estimate the value after a quick glance. It's about 50,000 gold coins in quantity. Fang Hao didn't look at the two boxes of gold coins. Instead, he spoke flatly. I don't sense any sincerity from the fairy clan. Last time, during the incident involving the Trade Alliance, Fang Hao didn't suffer any loss. After receiving compensation from the Alliance, he ended up bidding for two valuable items without spending a penny. However, that was compensation from the Trade Alliance. The fairy clan thought they could use these as compensation to convince Fang Hao to release their people. Obviously, that was impossible. The respect shown by the fairy clan was solely due to his dark gold hero. If he had not possessed any strength back then, there would have been a high chance of him being killed by the fairy clan. Mr. Fang Hao, I understand that actions of the two have been offensive towards you. However, the Dreamy Forest is not what it used to be. It is difficult for us to present anything more precious as compensation. Shinasara continued calmly. Shinasara's appearance was somewhat similar to the summoned wood-life spirit. The difference was that Shinasara appeared more like a tree, while wood-life spirit looked like it was made of intertwined vines. The tone of her speech was devoid of any emotion. Hardship is not an excuse to shirk responsibility. Fang Hao wasn't showing any signs of retreating. It's been quite a long time since last incident. Fang Hao could drag it out, but the fairy clan didn't have the time to prolong this. Their people were still in jail. Moreover, the Trade Alliance also put considerable pressure on the Dreamy Forest. This forced them to reach a settlement with Fang Hao as soon as possible and put an end to the matter. Shinasara fell silent. Her gaze drifted towards Goblin Moru. Moru and Fang Hao were somewhat friendly. She hoped he could help mediate the situation. Moru understood the meaning behind Shinasara's glance towards him, and after thinking for a bit, he spoke. Mr. Fang Hao, the fairy clan came here bearing great sincerity. If you have any demands, just tell them. The fairy clan will do their best to fulfill them. Fang Hao's territory was developing at a rapid pace. Outside, one could even see bone dragons ceaselessly transporting various gold and silver wares to the land. Fang Hao didn't give a second thought to the compensation brought by the fairy clan. So, to resolve this matter, his own opinion was needed. Mr. Fang Hao, you can put forward any demands you have. Shinasara also chimed in. Fang Hao was straightforward. 100,000 oak ember pieces. And we'll call it even. In the Dreamy Forest, there was a giant oak tree. The oak tree located at the center of the Dreamy Forest was the basis of the fairy clan's existence. The roots of the oak tree produced a resin-based amber, which possessed immense natural energy. Not only was it a rare material, but the amber also had the power to improve soil quality and promote plant growth. It could transform infertile land into a magical spiritual field, suitable for plant cultivation. The fairy clan relied on the ambers to expand their living space. Other clans had only heard of this but rarely saw real ambers. Fang Hao was well aware of the value of the amber. Hence his proposed count of 100,000 was mostly a starting point for bargaining. Upon hearing Fang Hao's words, Moru and Shinasara fell into silence. The fairy guards nearby brought a look of rage upon their faces, signifying their readiness for a fight to the death. Mr. Fang Hao, are you insulting me in this manner? Shinasara suddenly broke the silence. Although her tone was still stiff, her dissatisfaction was apparent. Requesting for the oak amber, it seemed, was deemed as insulting Shinasara. I did not mean to humiliate, but is it difficult for you to produce the amber? Or is that just a myth? Fang Hao curiously asked. Seeing that Fang Hao did not intend to cause trouble, Shinasara explained further. The tree produces 1 to 3 pieces of amber every 10 years. All of them are used to improve the soil surrounding the dreamy forest. We will not be able to gather any amber for the next decade. Oh, Fang Hao understood the root of the matter. To the fairy clan, oak amber carried a special significance. Yet, on the other hand, obtaining the amber was extremely difficult. Even if Fang Hao demanded it, they couldn't present it right now. This put Fang Hao in a dilemma. Without anything to give, how would they compensate? Mr. Fang Hao, what do you need the amber for? Perhaps we can assist somehow, Shinasara asked. Naturally, to improve farming land and increase grain production, Fang Hao replied. Upon hearing this, Shinasara immediately responded. This we may be able to discuss in more detail. Oh, Chief Shinasara, do you have a solution? Fang Hao curiously inquired. Shinasara nodded. Indeed, we have clan members skilled in cultivation. We can arrange for them to plant crops for you, as a part of our compensation. Fang Hao pondered. This could potentially meet his needs. Do they have any special skills? I do not lack ordinary farmers here, Fang Hao questioned. Woodland attendants, they can better assist plant growth at a rate 5 times greater than ordinary human farmers. Upon hearing Shinasara's explanation, interest sparkled in Fang Hao's eyes. These woodland attendants would be akin to labor troops in his camp. However, the characteristic of the woodland attendants lies in their ability to promote rapid plant growth. That sounds good. Chief Shinasara, how many people do you plan to send, and how long will they work for me? Fang Hao continued to ask. 2,000 people, for 10 years, Shinasara replied promptly. All right, I agree. Let's consider the matter of the fairy clan settled. I hope for more cooperation between us in the future. Fang Hao readily consented. Initially, Fang Hao was firm, because the fairies hadn't offered suitable compensation. Now, satisfied with the fairy clan's proposal, he promptly agreed to it. Yes, but I need you to assure their safety. If any of them are in danger, I will take everyone back. Shinasara emphasized her terms again. The fairies had significant lifespans, so 10 years was not a considerable duration for them. All right, I will arrange for their accommodation and safety, Fang Hao assured. The order within his territory has always been good. Good, let's consider this matter settled then. Shinasara was also well satisfied. Moru, who had been silently observing, broke into a smile too, like an insurance agent. He took a contract from his briefcase and placed it before Fang Hao and Shinasara. Since we have reached an agreement, let's sign the contract, Moru said. Fang Hao glanced at the contract, which stated his agreement to release the captured fairies in exchange for 10 years of labor from 2,000 members of the fairy clan. Upon confirming that there were no peculiar clauses, Fang Hao signed his name. Following Fang Hao, Shinasara signed as well. The agreement between both parties was complete. Fang Hao had drinks brought over, and everyone drained their glasses. Even Shinasara, who possessed a tree-like physique, joined in drinking. The atmosphere considerably lightened after that. The 3 representatives chatted leisurely about the current situation, discussing potential future cooperation, before Moru and Shinasara left Fang Hao's territory through the teleportation array with their party. Soon, the folks from the fairy clan would be sent over. It was afternoon, just before dinner. Moru, who had left, returned once again to Fang Hao's territory. Mr. Fang Hao, the fairy clan has already taken away the 2 prisoners. The trade alliance will also make sure they deliver the promised 2,000 people. Moru jumped onto a nearby seat and continued speaking. Well, I must thank you as well, Mr. Moru, for your mediation. Without your help, we wouldn't have resolved this issue so quickly. Fang Hao said with a smile. Haha, it's something the trade alliance should do. Moru laughed. Soon after, his laughter faded a little, and he continued. This morning, Mr. Fang Hao, your words truly scared me. I thought you were going to start a war with the fairy clan. Cared? When did that happen? Fang Hao was puzzled by Moru's words. Although he did hike up the price a bit, he didn't have any thoughts about starting a war. He wondered what words he said gave Moru the impression that he was preparing for war. Moru candidly said, "It was when you demanded the oak amber. You don't know how much I sweated." Oak amber? Is there a problem? Fang Hao was still clueless about what could be wrong. He might have asked for a little too much, considering his lack of knowledge about the difficulty to collect amber. But it surely wouldn't lead to a war, right? Seeing Fang Hao's incomprehension, Moru realized that Fang Hao was unaware of underlying details. Ironically, it was Moru who had talked about the situation in the dreamy forest with Fang Hao. "You don't know who Shinasara is?" Moru asked. "The leader of the fairy clan. I know that." Hearing Fang Hao's reply, Moru understood that he indeed wasn't fully aware. He then explained, "Shinasara is the oak in the dreamy forest." Oh shit. Hearing Moru's explanation, it dawned on him why the atmosphere turned so tense during the negotiation. Shinasara was the huge oak in the center of the dreamy forest, and the oak amber was the resin exuded by Shinasara, which then hardened into amber. If the fairies were to consider Shinasara as their mother, then his demand for amber could indeed be misunderstood as a provocation or insult. "I didn't know, and last time you told me that it was a giant oak. You didn't mention it could move." Fang Hao explained, shifting the blame onto Moru. "If the fairies were indeed powerful, we might have actually ended up in an all-out war." "So you're saying that oak tree has gained spirits and turned into a human?" Fang Hao continued to ask. "This world births many incredulous entities. Flower demons, tree spirits, all born from nature. An oak tree gaining spirits also seems reasonable." Moru answered, "I don't know much either. I just know Shinasara is that gigantic oak and the leader of the dreamy forest." Moru was just an ordinary clerk. Because he belonged to the trade alliance, he had learned a lot about various races. However, most of his knowledge was only superficial. "I see." Fang Hao finally understood. At this point, the maid announced that dinner was ready. Fang Hao invited Moru to join him for dinner. Moru didn't refuse. As they chatted casually, he praised Ira's cooking skills. He even vowed that if Ira were to open a restaurant in the settlement, it would definitely be a hit. After dinner, Moru bid farewell to Fang Hao and teleported away. After taking a walk around his territory, he headed to the hot springs to enjoy the service provided by Ira and Angia. And just as he was indulging in the comfort, the long-absent system notification suddenly appeared. "Congratulations on surviving safely. Lord Challenge task is now open. All individuals can choose to participate in the challenge mission, and those who complete the mission will receive generous rewards. Congratulations on your successful survival. Lord's Challenge task is now available. Everyone can choose to participate in the challenge task, and those who complete the task will receive generous rewards. Challenge task, Demon Rat Migration. Task content, resist the demon rat attacks. Task description. In 3 days, the demon rat legion will reappear on this continent, carrying plague and disease. They will attack the territory of those who accept the task. Territories that fail will be occupied by the demon rats and will not disappear once the task ends. A task is available. It has been a long time since a challenge task has been issued. Seemingly, an attack of the demon rats occurred in a previous system task. This time, it's the demon rats again. It seems that the demon rats are considered a race on this continent. From the task introduction, it seems this task differs from the previous ones. The attack will occur 3 days from now, and if you fail to resist the demon rat invasion, your territory will be occupied by the demon rats. The demon rats possessing a territory will not disappear after the battle ends. If the demon rats survive, it will pose a threat to the surrounding powers. Therefore, if anyone fails to resist the demon rats, not only will the transmigrators lose their territory, but the surrounding original resident villages will also suffer. Rats might not always be a strong species, but they reproduce fast. In a few months, their numbers will have doubled, and they carry the plague and the Black Death. In this era, the power of these 2 contagious diseases is frightening. This is what makes the demon rats terrifying. Do you accept the challenge task? Once the task introduction ended, an option immediately appeared to accept it. Forced tasks were cancelled some time ago, and now all the tasks issued by the system are optional. Accepting and completing the challenge will yield substantial rewards, but also the danger of death. If one does not accept, they can avoid the danger in the task, but the gap in strength between them and other transmigrators will widen. Eventually, they will either be eliminated or absorbed. Fang Hao didn't hesitate. He directly chose to accept. Successfully accepted the challenge task, Demon Rat Migration. Task countdown, 2 days 59 hours 55 minutes. In his territory he has enough soldiers, and the undead skeletons are not afraid of the diseases carried by the demon rats. Of course it made sense to accept. Moreover, the rewards for each completed challenge task have always been pretty decent. After accepting the task, the others in the territory channel, Zhang Bin and the rest, began discussing. Zhang Bin, should we accept this task? Zhu Yang, I think it's better to accept. The task rewards are usually pretty good. Fu Lei, I have many human villages here. If a plague occurs, it could affect Prul City too. Zhang Bin, it's the same in my area as well. There are too many human villages. If the demon rats appear, it'll be impossible to control. Dong Jiayu, let's see what Brother Hao says. Zhang Bin, right, we should follow the leader. While reading their conversation, Fang Hao was also contemplating this issue. The territories of Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang are not bad. They are quite distant from the original inhabitant city, and are guarded by the undead army nearby. However, managing the territories of Zhang Bin, Fu Lei and Zhu Yang would be difficult. The surrounding areas are all human villages and cities. If the rats spread the plague among the original inhabitants, it could be very difficult to manage. After some thought, Fang Hao said, Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang, accept the task. I will arrange for the undead army near your territories to help defend. The others, refrain from taking the task to avoid complications. Okay, boss. Got it, Brother Hao. Everyone replied in agreement. Nobody expressed any disagreement after Fang Hao made the final decision. Meanwhile, private messages for Fang Hao also came in. It was from Dong Jiayu. Brother Hao, I have 5 subordinate transmigrators in my territory. I want them to participate in the task too, Dong Jiayu said. In recent days, the number of cities subordinate to Dong Jiayu's territory has been expanding, including the 2 female stars given to Dong Jiayu last time. 3 more transmigrators have become part of her subordinate cities. Fang Hao also understood her intentions. It had been a while since a challenge task appeared. Dong Jiayu wanted to use this opportunity to rapidly advance. Yes, I will notify Hygiene about this. Just be careful of infectious diseases on your own. If you get sick, it won't be easy to deal with, Fang Hao warned. Sure, thank you, Brother Hao. Dong Jiayu immediately replied. After finishing speaking to Dong Jiayu, Fang Hao ate a piece of fruit handed to his mouth. He then reopened the regional channel to see what everyone else was discussing. This task can be taken up by anyone willing. I refuse, not knowing who will catch a disease. If one catches it, it could mean death for all. The demon rats are probably similar to the previous time, carrying a virus with a certain probability. Just be mindful to burn the bodies and stay away from water sources to avoid problems. It's easier said than done. Everything is under control until it isn't. Indeed, I've already decided not to participate in this activity. I've barely survived up till now, and I won't miss out on this one reward. That seems reasonable. We can participate in the next challenge. A group of wimps afraid of solving this. I dare you. I hardly believe that you dare to eat shit. I don't believe it either. In the channel, everyone was discussing the demon rat task. People who have survived till now have developed their territories onto a certain scale and has some troops. If it were an ordinary challenge, perhaps there would be more participants. However, the disclosure of plague and black death deterred many people, especially when someone pointed out it wouldn't matter if they missed this task. They could make up for it next time. This convinced many people, who decided not to take the risk this time. On the other hand, there were also many people who decided to seize the opportunity and take their chances. Although not everyone reached the same gains as Fang Hao, many lords were also fortunate. Everyone had their own options. Fang Hao didn't have the ability to take care of everyone in the district. All he could do was ensure that he, Dong Jiayu, and Kong Yang successfully completed their tasks, without suffering major losses during the Demon Rat Challenge. At the same time, Fang Hao noticed that the equipment in his store had once again begun to sell like hotcakes. The amount of equipment was decreasing every second. The equipment in his store had all been upgraded. The original white weapons and armor had all been taken down and had been replaced with green weapons and suit sets. The cost of producing green equipment wasn't much more than that of white equipment, but its attributes had improved significantly, especially the green armor set, which came with additional properties. The green equipment was far more superior than the white ones, hence the higher selling price. However, most lords generally were thrifty. They continued to use the white equipment as long as it was still functional and only sold green equipment occasionally. Now, with this sudden challenge, those who wanted to participate in the task had to upgrade their soldiers' equipment in order to protect themselves. Even if they had to break the bank, they would have to upgrade to better equipment. So, Fang Hao's equipment was rapidly selling out. Just when he was about to sell out, Fang Hao added tens of thousands of pieces of equipment from his inventory for sale. At the same time, even the usual overlooked meat and basic materials were rapidly increasing in price. Indeed, war was promoting consumption. Fang Hao was lying on the edge of the hot spring. Anjia tucked herself under Fang Hao's arm and leaned on his chest. Her eyes turned to the Book of Lords. What's so interesting that you're reading so earnestly? The abilities of the Book of the Lords was quite miraculous. If a non-player tried to snatch it, they wouldn't be able to see the content and channels inside. However, if the owner of the Book of Lords allowed them to, onlookers could read its contents. However, it was mostly used for viewing the world map, because transmigrators chatted in Chinese, a language these people didn't understand. The demon rats will attack the territory in 3 days, Fang Hao said softly. Hearing this, Ira, lying on the other side, leaned toward Fang Hao's other arm. So Master won't leave these few days. With a rapid expansion of the territory, Fang Hao stayed in his territory less often. Ira wasn't a strong fighter and had to look after the territory, so she couldn't leave with Fang Hao. Upon hearing that Fang Hao would stay in the territory for the next few days, her face instantly lit up with joy. We will have to stay in the territory until the demon rat invasion, replied Fang Hao. That's great, Ira shouted. Neither Ira nor Angia seemed nervous about the upcoming demon rat invasion. After all, the undead soldiers stationed outside the city were more than enough to resist any enemies. In the hearts of all the maids, no force in the world could defeat Fang Hao. Fang Hao, provoked by the two women, closed the Book of Lords, jumped into the pool and started to play. The next day, after breakfast, Fang Hao gave command to Black Sword and Blood Hunter, asking them to deploy undead soldiers to aid Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang in defending their territory from the challenge in 2 days. Kong Yang's situation wasn't too difficult. His single city was filled with ample undead soldiers stationed in Crescent Heights, eliminating the dangers of the Demon Rat Challenge. The real issue was with Dong Jiayu. Aside from her own city, she had 5 affiliate cities under her command. Black Sword had to assign personnel for defense preparations. After giving all the instructions, Fang Hao left the hall. He saw a tall troll skeleton hero standing tall in front of the Lord's mansion. The busy maid in the morning all carefully avoided him and continued their work. When Fang Hao came out, he also checked the information on the troll skeleton hero. Rockhead Blue/6 stages. As expected, it was the leader of the troll coalition, Rockhead Bageth. After his death, he was turned into a skeleton hero by Nelson and now was only referred to as Rockhead. Rockhead was still a towering troll skull. Due to a ring of gray markings on his forehead, his skeleton appeared slightly yellowish. Lord. Rockhead saluted the moment he saw Fang Hao. Yes, welcome to the team, Rockhead. Fang Hao nodded. Rockhead stood up straight. They're in a daze. Didn't Master Nelson come out? Fang Hao continued. No, Master Nelson is working and didn't come out. Rockhead answered with a deep voice. It seems Nelson didn't even give himself a day off. Yes, Rockhead, go to the warehouse to see if there is suitable equipment for you, then come back and see me. Fang Hao continued. Yes, sir. Rockhead took the order and walked toward the warehouse. Fang Hao immediately checked his attributes. Rockhead Blue/6 stages. Faction, Undead. Template, Blue. Race trait, Undead, Hollow Skeleton, Light Weakness. Legion talent, Temporary Military Power, Infantry Commander, Fight or Die. Skills, Fleshless, Multiple Attacks, Stone/Axe Throw. Innate abilities: intermediate combat mastery, advanced defense mastery, advanced blunt weapon mastery, advanced shield mastery. Temporary military power: this unit can temporarily command and recruit friendly forces in battle to form a new legion and continue entering the battlefield. Infantry commander: when this unit is in command of an infantry unit, all attributes plus 5%. Fight or die: the army led by this unit is not prone to rout and flee, morale plus 15%. Stone/axe throw: when using stones or axes as long-ranged weapons, distance plus 10%, hit plus 9%. Stones add additional blunt damage. Flying axes damage unarmored equipment plus 5%. Description: a creation of the corpse witch. Not recognized by the god of Undead. This hero cannot level up or advance. The attributes of Rockhead are typical for a normal troll commander. There are no standout features. The only special one is the temporary military power attribute, which can quickly recruit defeated teams, reorganize them, and continue the battle. However, this skill is a flaw in the Undead camp. Normal skeletons do not have morale heroes. Once they enter the battlefield, the fight is not over until one side perishes, so the situation of the troops fleeing due to defeat will never occur. This temporary military power is utterly useless. It remains to be seen whether a mixed army of living and undead creatures will be formed in the future. If it can be formed, this skill may be useful, but whether the attribute is good or bad is not important. The wars within the territory are all large-scale battles. The role of the hero, as always, is to lead and boost the attributes of the troops. Infantry commander's attribute is enough to add the corresponding attributes to the commanding army. Before long, dressed in a suit of metal armor and holding a huge axe in his hand, he returned to Fang Hao's side. "Master." You're in charge of defending the territory," Fang Hao said. "Yes, master," Rockhead replied straight away. Besides defending the city walls and gates, the duty assignment included patrol tasks. Having received his orders, Rockhead turned around and strode away. Having finished with Rockhead, Fang Hao used God's presence to reach the Blackfoot Cats village directly. The Blackfoot Cats' current residence is the former Knoll village on the north side of the territory. It's not far from the main city. After teleporting to a skeleton warrior, Fang Hao walked directly into the clan leader's hall. The old Blackfoot Cat clan leader, learning of the news from his tribe, came out of the room immediately. "Lord," the old clan leader said as soon as he saw him. I have a task for you," Fang Hao said. "My lord, please give your instructions. We will complete the task you assign," the old clan leader guaranteed. Fang Hao didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "We have received news that a group of demon rats has set up camp nearby. Arrange for patrols to look for similar camps or nests in the vicinity. Record the locations when found and report back to me." According to previous system mission prompts, they would appear ahead of time after the mission was announced. The Transmigrator could use this to determine the direction of enemy attacks, which was the only way to make some pre-war preparations. "All right, my lord. Shall I let Lori lead the team?" the old man asked. "You organize it yourself. I want accurate and detailed information, leaving no stone unturned." Feeling Fang Hao's seriousness, the old man did not dare to take it lightly. "Understood, my lord." Fang Hao nodded, then promptly cancelled the God's presence skill. The Blackfoot Cat tribe, though small in stature, possesses formidable scouting and tracking abilities. The construction of the village has also been completed. Fang Hao delegated the task of finding the demon rat spawning location to them. They move quickly and are more meticulous. After assigning the tasks to the Blackfoot Cats, Fang Hao continued to check the stock of materials in the warehouse. The dwarven mountainous great furnace has forged 4,045 pieces of fine iron. In anticipation of the demon rat attack the day after, Fang Hao decides to produce a batch of Temple Guardian armor sets first. He plans to equip an elite troop specially for territory safety protection. He moved to an open space outside of the city. Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and found the blueprint for the Temple Guardians' equipment. Temple Guardians shoulder armor, 8 iron castings, 5 fine iron, 10 thick leather, 12 woven threads, 10 metal components, 3 mithril. Temple Guardians boots, 6 iron castings, 4 fine iron, 8 thick leather, 15 woven threads, 12 metal components, 2 mithril. Temple Guardians chest armor, 12 iron castings, 8 fine iron, 15 thick leather, 22 woven threads, 18 metal components, 4 mithril. Temple Guardians helmet, 8 iron castings, 6 fine iron, 12 thick leather, 10 woven threads, 50 metal components, 5 mithril. He began crafting. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Temple Guardians shoulder armor. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Temple Guardians boots. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Temple Guardians chest armor. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Temple Guardians helmet. A great surge of light emerged from the surroundings, pelting down like a shower from the sky. Fang Hao casually picked up a Temple Guardian's helmet and inspected it. Temple Guardian's helmet purple. Category: helmet. Defense: level 4 defense. Ability: damage received -5%. Set attributes: movement speed +10%, damage received -10%, elemental resistance +10%, morale +20%. Description: the Holy Guardians will unswervingly execute any task assigned by the temple, dutifully protecting their faith. The Temple Guardians set, with its golden and silver color scheme, can be described as quite imposing. Wherever you go, you give off a formidable and elite feel that's characteristic of a kingdom's fine troops. The equipment's defense is a level 4 defense. It falls within the purview of purple items, but its abilities and set attributes further elevate the gear's grade. Especially noteworthy, -15% damage reduction effectively gives the set a level 5 defense. Overall, the Temple Guardian set is the best suit of gear he currently possesses a blueprint for. It's even superior to the armor worn by the likes of the Black Sword and Blood Hunter, those heroes. Now, the only thing missing is enough fine iron. It seems that efficiency needs to be improved on the dwarven end. The dwarves need to step up their game. Checking the remaining quantity of fine iron, he found 17,045 pieces. Fang Hao moved to another open space, and continued to open the Book of Lords, and found the Thunderblade blueprint. Thunderblade shield. 10 iron castings, 5 fine iron, 8 thick leather, 12 metal components, 2 mithril. Thunderblade cloak. 5 linen cloth, 2 silk, 22 woven threads, 5 leather, 8 metal components, 3 mithril. Thunderblade halberd. 1 hard flexible wood, 12 fine iron, 2 thick leather, 10 metal components, 5 mithril. He starts crafting. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Thunderblade shields. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Thunderblade cloaks. 100-fold amplifier triggered, acquired 10,100 Thunderblade halberds. Another great surge of light appeared. A great amount of Thunderblade weapons appeared in front of Fang Hao. Fang Hao checked the equipment attributes. Thunderblade shield purple. Category: shield. Defense: level 5 defense. Ability: deals 10% lightning damage to the attacker. Description: it seems to harbor the fury of the sky, retaliating against all attacks. The Thunderblade shield belongs to the category of round shields. The front is a bright silver color, engraved with various intricate patterns, and the inside has a handle with a screw structure at the top and bottom, enabling a firm and effortless grip when wielding the shield. A round shield, unlike a large shield, is more portable and not as heavy. However, in comparison to large shields, the effective defensive range of a round shield is much smaller. Overall, Fang Hao is quite satisfied with the Thunderblade shield. A level 5 defense, that's already a pretty high attribute. After examining the shield, Fang Hao picked up the second piece of gear. Thunderblade cloak purple. Category: cloak. Defense: level 2 defense. Ability: lightning tracking. Lightning tracking. Upon receiving an attack, a tracking lightning bolt is automatically launched at the attacker, causing a paralysis effect and lightning damage. Cooldown 15 seconds. Description: the thunderbolt will lead you to the culprits lurking in the shadows. The Thunderblade cloak is a single shoulder cloak. On the blue fabric are embroidered silver patterns. When the single shoulder cloak is worn, it rests on the left shoulder. The short design doesn't hinder combat like a full-length cloak would. Its defensive power is only at a level 2 defense, but the lightning tracking ability is rather handy. Upon receiving an attack, a bolt of lightning will automatically strike the enemy's position. This usually happens when you're ambushed by an enemy. Also, you must ensure you're not killed by your adversary before considering their position. Otherwise, if you were to be killed or severely injured by a distant arrow from an enemy, the lightning tracking attack on the enemy would be pointless. Now the final piece of gear. Thunderblade halberd purple. Category: Halberd. Damage: Level 5 damage. Ability: Additional 24% attack power based on movement speed. Description: No enemy can escape the pursuit of thunder. The Thunderblade Halberd is a long-handled halberd weapon. In addition to level 5 damage, the weapon possesses an ability that increases the attack power by 24% based on movement speed. In other words, the quicker you run, the more attack power you additionally gain. Actually, this weapon should be more suitable for cavalry use. There are no outstanding cavalry in my undead camp. On the other hand, I recently acquired a blueprint for the construction of a human Lionheart Knight camp. I could construct the Lionheart Knight camp, recruit knights, and ensure my safety when I go to Lis City again. Lis City is becoming more and more chaotic right now. After reviewing all the equipment, the skeleton hero Yan Shu, waiting beside, had already been patient for a long time. Yan Shu. Fang Hao called out softly. Yan Shu stepped forward. My lord. Command the soldiers to wear these equipment, said Fang Hao. Yes, my lord. Yan Shu began to gather forces immediately, and let the soldiers start changing into newly produced equipment. Fang Hao also selected 10 sets of Temple Guard suits and Thunderblade 3-piece sets from the equipment, and stored them in his storage space. If these 10 sets of equipments are to be divided, 1 set each for myself and the demon doll, the remaining few sets are intended for Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang to deal with the demon rat challenge in a few days. It just so happens that Dong Jiayu is good at using long-handled weapons. Spears and halberds should be roughly the same, right? Both are quite long. As for other people, once there are enough fine iron, Fang Hao can continue to produce more equipment. Yan Shu was commanding the soldiers to change their equipment. Fang Hao returned to his mansion and sent 8 sets of equipment to Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang through the trade channel. Holy cow, purple equipment, thank you, boss. Kong Yang replied immediately after receiving the equipment. You keep 1 set and give the other set to Blood Hunter, said Fang Hao. Understood, thank you, boss. I owe you 1. Kong Yang's territory is in Crescent Heights. There are not many villages there and also no powerful enemies, with neither danger nor opportunities, and the soldiers in the city wearing only white and green equipment. This time, getting a set of purple equipment, he felt like he was dreaming. Meanwhile, Dong Jiayu also received Fang Hao's equipment, but her demeanor was much more placid. Thank you, Brother Hao, Dong Jiayu said. I see, you keep 1 set, and give the rest to Black Sword and several other heroes, be careful. Fang Hao repeated. All right, Brother Hao. After a brief reply, she ended the conversation between the two. Afternoon. Laurie came to report the reconnaissance situation on the demon rat spawn spots. My lord, we have discovered 4 large underground caves outside the city. Each location is populated by hundreds of individual caves. We inspected them. The caves were wrapped in energy and were inaccessible, Laurie said while passing a map. The map was hand-drawn, with the city where Fang Hao was located on the center. At the 4 directions of east, south, west, and north of the city, 4 locations were marked, representing the positions of the 4 sets of underground caves. As for what Laurie meant by the caves being protected by energy and being inaccessible, this meant that the mission time had not arrived yet. Monsters would only spawn in the caves once the mission time has come. Just as Fang Hao was about to ask Laurie to take him to inspect the peculiar caves, Ira called from the kitchen to announce that dinner was ready. In an instant, Laurie immediately dashed into the dining room and obediently sat in a seat. The speed was so fast that Fang Hao took a moment to react. At this point, Fang Hao finally understood. This Laurie purposely came during mealtime, intending to partake in the meal here. Fang Hao packed up the map and joined the others for a meal in the dining room. Angie also came downstairs, where she quietly chatted with Laurie. After dinner, Laurie led Fang Hao and others to an underground burrow gathering place. The group passed through a forest. They arrived at the gathering area Laurie had been talking about. At first glance, the ground was filled with burrows nearly 1 meter in diameter. The entrance of each burrow was reinforced with sticks and rubble, and the walls on either side were incredibly rough. It could be affirmed that these burrows were the spawn points of demon rats for the migration mission. Otherwise, with so many burrows here, Fang Hao wouldn't have missed them previously. The burrows were protected by an unknown energy force, which pushed back any stone that was thrown in. The inside of the burrow was pitch black, and it was impossible to see where it led or whether demon rats were already present inside. So these are the spots where the enemies appear, crawling out from the ground? Angia curiously asked. Yes, Laurie investigated and found 4 of such burrow-gathering areas, Fang Hao replied. Fang Hao then explained to Demetrija and Rockhead about the demon rats' plans to invade their territory. Master, what's your intention? Demetrija asked further. Fang Hao pondered for a moment and said, we have ample defense forces within our base. I plan to let the 4 of us each command an army and be well prepared in advance. As soon as the enemies appear, immediately launch a counterattack. His idea was quite simple. His advantage over others was his plentiful forces. Other lords might need to rely on their cities as defense points, rallying their forces to wipe out the invading enemies, but Fang Hao didn't need to do so, since he already knew the enemy spawn points. Why not set up an ambush ahead of time and eliminate the enemies the moment they appear? Moreover, with his 3 heroes and himself, they had the perfect number to guard the 4 gathering places. I agree with your idea, Master. With this, we can also prevent the enemy from fleeing in defeat and affecting the surrounding villages, Demetrija agreed. Angia and Laurie were chatting to one side, and Rockhead, standing straight to the side, didn't seem interested in expressing his opinion. Fang Hao then declared, Demetrija will take charge of the enemy's base in the south, Angia will be in charge of the west, and Rockhead will be in charge of the north, while I will be in charge of the east. Any questions? No. The 3 of them responded one after another. Fang Hao had his own reasons for this arrangement. The south side was close to the human city of Prul. To prevent any issues, the strongest Demetrija was assigned there. The western woods were hard to traverse due to a mountain area inhabited by ogres, but Angia's pathfinding skill assured that the heroic army's speed wouldn't be affected on difficult terrain. The northern and eastern sides were generally similar. Fang Hao chose the east for himself and assigned the north to Rockhead. Seeing no objections, Fang Hao said, all right, that's the plan for now. The demon rats will be attacking the day after tomorrow. Go back and prepare your troops accordingly, then set up a defense at your respective places. Yes, Master. The crowd returned to the city, and the external forces began to mobilize swiftly. Fang Hao too mobilized an army of 200,000 and headed straight to the gathering place in the east. Additionally, a large number of Tarn guards were arranged near the eastern Bronze Bull city to help Fang Hao convey orders. After all, the army was indeed huge. Relying solely on Fang Hao, such a large army might struggle to operate. The other 3 locations were also gathering forces from nearby cities to help Demetrija and others set up the defense. Firstly, the skeleton warriors were ordered to fully enclose the burrow in a semicircle. The front row consisted of skeleton warriors, the second row were spear bearers. Sharp spears pierced through the gaps in the shields, pointing forwards. The second and third rows consisted of archers. Although this time Fang Hao had equipped them with the fine iron musket and misfortune strike crossbow. In a mid-range encirclement battle like this, the musket's power and accuracy could be better utilized, and the crossbow would make up for the time it took to reload the muskets, ensuring continuous output. Behind the archers were the 2-handed sword Baron Tomb guards who could react promptly if any accident occurred. Further behind were the mages, bone dragons, Nisbet, and 50,000 skeleton giant bats. Fang Hao continued to set up a large number of spike pits and traps. They were placed at the forefront of the formation. With everything prepared, all they needed was for the mission to start. 2 days later, there was only 1 hour and 32 minutes left on the countdown to the migration of the demon rats. The setting sun left a trail of red clouds on the horizon. The demon doll sat atop a horse, waiting for the mission to begin. Lord, everything is ready. A Tauren quickly approached and spoke. The Tauren, sent by Bronze Bull City, were there to assist with the commands. They were not needed for direct combat. All right, light the torches ahead of time. Everyone should prepare for battle, Fang Hao said calmly. Immediately, some went into the underground gathering place, lighting the iron barrels that had been prepared in advance. The fuel in each barrel was ignited. The orange flames illuminated the entire cave area. The mission was not set during the day. It was already dusk, and it would soon be night. By then, these fires would be needed to illuminate the battlefield. Time trickled on. Soon, Fang Hao received the system notification. The migration of the demon rats, the mission begins. Prepare to meet the enemy, Fang Hao shouted. Upon hearing Fang Hao's words, one of the Taurens to the side promptly fired a flare into the sky. The orange firework exploded in the sky, alerting everyone to prepare for battle. Command after command was given. Essays shesh. Under the command, the shield formation and spearmen in the front squatted down. The skeleton archers behind them pointed their cold steel firearms forward from the front line. As the night grew darker, the burning iron barrels crackled. Everyone stared ahead, but the target cave was quiet. Just as Fang Hao began to doubt whether they'd chosen the wrong location, faint noises started coming from ahead. Then, the sparse noises became more and more distinct. It was as if countless creatures were incessantly crawling through the tunnels. The sounds grew louder and closer. Suddenly, a ratman about 1 meter tall jumped out of one of the tunnels. He was wearing ragged hemp clothes and his body was covered in gray fur. The ratman held a large sword full of cracks. His green eyes curiously surveyed the surroundings. Then, one after another, more ratmen leapt out from the tunnel. As ratmen should have some night vision abilities, their gaze quickly fell on the undead legion standing directly in front of them. Ah! The ratman jumped and squealed. Boom! A gunshot sounded. A bullet from a firearm went straight through the belly of the screaming ratman, sending him staggering backwards in agony before he fell to the ground, wailing in pain. The ratmen around him, who were originally filled with excitement, instantly fell silent. They looked on in shock at their fallen companion, full of blood. Bang, bang, bang! Another round of gunfire, and more ratmen fell to the ground. It was only then they belatedly realized that these were weapons fired from the distant undead. After a round of gunshots, a dense barrage of crossbow bolts flew in, causing half of the ratmen who had just come out and were yet to regroup to fall in the blink of an eye. The ratmen stared at their fallen comrades, somewhat stunned. At this point, a ratman wearing dark red armor, much stronger and taller than the others, crawled out of the tunnel. After quickly assessing the situation on the battlefield, he blew the horn at his waist. With the sound of the powerful horn, all the ratmen began to radiate a faint red glow. They hunched slightly, faces turning savage and menacing, saliva dripping from their mouths. It was clear that they had entered a bloodthirsty state. The next second, all the ratmen that had emerged raised their weapons. They began to throw themselves recklessly forwards. Crazy, ferocious. These characteristics were now displayed by every ratman. Fang Hao remained seated on his horse, his expression calm. The 2 previous rounds of firing were his orders. The goal was to draw the ratmen's attention. Otherwise, if they couldn't determine the direction and ran other ways, it would be more difficult to capture them. Now, Fang Hao's goal had been achieved. Not only did he attract their attention, but he also made them angry and lose their sanity. As the ratmen got closer, Fang Hao was able to see their names and attributes. The poor ones armed with wooden sticks and beast bones were identified as slave rats level 2. Those wearing hemp clothes and occasionally with some leather armor were scout rats tier 3. Behind them were even better equipped clan warrior rats and clan spear rats at tier 4 and 5. It was obvious that the demon rats were a race with many classes, but their weapons and equipment lacked maintenance and were in a poor state. This should be relevant to mentioned in the system notification. Considering the migration of the demon rats, it seemed the ratmen had already lost their city and dwelling place and were on the hunt for a new place to settle. Watching the ratmen rush towards them, Fang Hao gave the order, beat the drums. Dong dong dong. The war drums sounded, and a grey-white halo enveloped the entire undead camp. In the darkness of the night, more and more ratmen appeared, their charge growing louder. The ratmen at the front of the line had already gotten to the erected barriers, where they raised their weapons to begin dismantling the roadblocks set up along the path. Pass on the order, fire at will. Yes, Lord. The messenger promptly passed on the order. Subsequently, the area was filled with the sounds of gunfire, as constant as raindrops. The sound of firearms echoed throughout the land. At this distance, the power of the firearms could be fully demonstrated. A large number of ratmen fell, their bodies punctured by bullets, as they wailed and writhed in pools of blood. Many ratmen had their limbs blasted off by the bullets. The sky was filled with fresh blood and fragments of flesh. Under the sound of gunfire, the crossbow bolts continuously shot out, killing the approaching enemy. Just the first round of attacks, and a vacuum area appeared directly in front of the barricade. The first batch of ratmen who fell did not affect the ratmen behind them. They continued to rush fearlessly to the barricade, chopping away at the obstacles in front. Then the gunfire rang out for the second time. Another large group of ratmen fell. The ratmen behind continued to take the places of the fallen, and launched another attack. Relay the order, mage group attack, said Fang Hao. Yes, my lord. The messenger ran off. Soon, a dense barrage of magic missiles flew over the heads of the undead army, like meteors crashing into the Ratman's ranks. The magic missiles fell at the location of the Ratman's cave. Some Ratmen, who had just crawled out of the cave and hadn't yet figured out the situation, were blown away and became dazed. Soon, under the continuous onslaught of the Ratmen, all the barricades set up were cleared one by one. The Ratmen, as if they had gone mad, threw their bodies at the spear wall. Bodies were impaled on the spears, blood sliding down the spear shafts. The Ratmen were fierce warriors, but against the well-equipped undead army that had been waiting in formation, they were still at a disadvantage. The bodies of Ratmen in front of the army piled up into a small hill, although the number of Ratmen was still huge. Not knowing fear, but Fang Hao was certain, if the Ratmen didn't have any more tricks up their sleeves, the victory of the battle had become a foregone conclusion. The Ratmen couldn't break through their defense, let alone seize the city. At that moment, Fang Hao's gaze fell on the area of the Ratman's cave. He saw the Ratman leader, clad in dark red armor, discussing something with a few other Ratmen. It seemed they too realized their chances of winning were not great, and were discussing a new strategy. Due to the distance, Fang Hao couldn't see the information of the Ratman leader, but judging from their communication gestures, they should be very intelligent, much smarter than other Ratmen who only knew how to charge. Son, a few Ratmen had finished their discussion. A squad of Ratmen, draped in a black cloak, started leaving from the side of the troop, intending to leave the main battlefield under the cover of darkness and carry out another task. Seeing the intention of the small team, Fang Hao naturally wouldn't let them succeed. He told the Tauren next to him, "Have people ride the bone dragon with the skeleton giant bat. Clear out that Ratman squad, don't let any escape. Start patrolling around after cleaning up. Kill any Ratman trying to leave the main battlefield." "Yes, my lord." The messenger immediately delivered the order. From the rear of the army, a bone dragon soared into the sky, and behind it was a dense crowd of skeleton giant bats, flying towards the Ratman squad that was leaving. Within sight, that Ratman, draped in a black cloak, who planned to leave, was surrounded by a group of skeleton giant bats, gnawed into a pile of white bones. Then the giant bats began to patrol around the battlefield. As soon as they found Ratmen attempting to leave the battlefield, they would directly attack and kill them all. Fang Hao's gaze returned to the Ratman leader. He had expected that after the team he arranged to go out was killed, the leader would become furious. However, the leader's face still remained calm. He gave one order after another to the Ratman. This made Fang Hao feel something was off. He always felt the leader had another plan. Just now, it was merely a simple probe. Lightning strike, speed up the pace of the battle. Fang Hao ordered again. No matter what plot the other party had, as long as they directly killed these Ratmen, they wouldn't fail in this battle. After receiving Fang Hao's order, all the skeleton warriors held in their hands multiple lightning spears. On command, they were thrown towards the front, inside the Lord's mansion. Fang Hao's body was sitting on the bone throne, while controlling the demon doll to command the army in the battle. He also used the Book of Lords to understand the battle situation of Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang. After continuous practice, Fang Hao became more and more skilled at controlling two bodies at the same time. As long as he is not engaged in an intense real-time battle, there is no problem controlling two bodies simultaneously. "Boss, there's no problem on my end. The Blood Hunter leader is in battle and we are just standing on the city wall and watching." The Ratmen were basically killed. Kong Yang reported back. "Well, stay safe," said Fang Hao. At the same time, Dong Jiayu also replied, "Brother Hao, the situation here is a bit messy. The battlefield is quite large, but it's still under control. The leaders of the Black Sword and Giant Wall are engaged in combat." At the same time, Dong Jiayu also shared a couple of photos. The photos recorded scenes of the battle between the Undead and the Ratmen. From the shooting position, Dong Jiayu should be in the ranks of the Undead army, not hiding in the city. The city Dong Jiayu was tasked to defend had multiple locations, making it a bit more complicated to fight than Kong Yang, who was only defending a single city. Even though there were many locations to cover, the number of Undead army and heroes stationed with Dong Jiayu was also higher. There shouldn't be any issues. "Well, be careful. Report back to me promptly if anything happens," Fang Hao instructed again. "All right, Brother Hao, it should be okay. If it weren't for the fear of bacteria on these Ratmen, I feel like I could take them on myself. Dong Jie replied, not willing to be outdone. All right, stop it. If you get hurt, you're the one who's going to suffer. Heh heh, I was just saying. After ending the chat with them, Fang Hao glanced again at the area channel. Many people were discussing the fight. Some said that these demon rats were not hard to deal with, while others were seeking help. They were using resources as bargaining chips, asking nearby lords to aid them. Fang Hao was looking closely at the situation. Just then, a raging roar suddenly came from outside the lord's mansion. Following that was the sound of heavy objects hitting the ground. Fang Hao, sitting on his throne, was suddenly taken aback. Could someone have invaded his territory? Without thinking, Fang Hao drew out his thunder sword from his storage space and ran towards the door. He saw two Nisbets who were guarding the door already engaged in battle with the demon rats. On the open ground in front of the lord's mansion, there were several round holes. From inside these holes, the ratmen were continuously rushing out to join the battle. Master! Ira also ran out from her room, her face pale. Fang Hao instructed, stay back. Okay. Ira turned to run back inside. Fang Hao turned his attention back to what was happening outside. Underground runners Tier 3. This species of demon rat, amongst the ratman faction, plays the role of an engineer. They can quickly dig tunnels, providing concealed routes for the ratman. With a tunnel finished, the ratman legion could use this concealed route to reach their target city directly and initiate a decapitation strike. Although these demon rats were a part of the system's mission, they nonetheless displayed intelligence no lesser than that of humans. If it were not for the transmigrators preparing in advance, denying the demon rats time to organize and command their forces, the transmigrators wouldn't have any advantages, and the likelihood of failing the mission would exponentially increase. More and more demon rats streamed into the city via the tunnels. Their only target was the lord's mansion, the heart of the city they were aiming to capture. The Nisbets held off the first wave of demon rats. The city's defensive soldiers also rushed in from all sides. After surrounding the lord's mansion, they started to slaughter the invading demon rats. The number of soldiers in the city could not compete with the vast numbers outside. However, those defending the city were undead warriors equipped with the Temple Guard set, which included high-tier units like the skeleton mantis and Nisbet. The demon rat death toll rose swiftly. Soon enough, the invading demon rats were largely exterminated. Fang Hao immediately instructed his soldiers to throw explosives into the holes. Boom, boom, boom! With several muffled explosions, the tunnels the ratmen had dug were blasted apart. However, this had merely destroyed the existing tunnels. If the ratmen still had underground runners, they would continue to dig more. Fang Hao immediately gathered the guards in front of the lord's mansion, with a new plan to tighten the defense. Ira, Fang Hao called. Master! Ira came running back out from her room. Get all the maids together. We'll be sleeping in the lord's mansion tonight, Fang Hao instructed. As you wish, master. Ira answered and ran off to the area where the maids lived. Meanwhile, Fang Hao opened the Book of Lords and sent messages to Dong Jiayu and Kang Yang. He warned them to be aware of the tunnel-digging demon rats, to prevent them from being taken by surprise. After finishing his instructions to them, Fang Hao posted a snapshot of the tunnel-digging demon rats in the area's chat, warning everyone taking up the mission to watch out for the demon rats and their decapitation strikes. Damn, they can target our leaders? These rats have evolved. I'm glad I didn't accept this task. A lot of people are going to die tonight. Damn it, I was wondering why those ratmen seemed so relaxed. They were digging tunnels. Thanks for the heads up. Thanks for the warning, Lord Fang Hao. The crowd spoke at will. Fang Hao did not have time to reply to them. He closed the Book of Lords and saw Ira approaching with all the maids. Deep in the night, the usual time for rest. The maids, dressed in simple loose nightgowns, are huddled together, creating tumultuous waves. Dodging past the bodies at the door, they made their way into the manor. Master! The maids bowed, their loose linen tops hanging loosely. From Fang Hao's perspective, everything was clearly in view beyond what he should see. It seemed as if the maids did not care, playfully vying against each other, occasionally jiggling enticingly. All right, it's a little dangerous outside tonight. You ladies will have to make do for the night here. Fang Hao said to the maids. Yes, master. The maids acknowledged. Ira led the maids upstairs, starting to allocate them rooms for their rest. The manor had been upgraded to level 10, and the number of rooms had increased substantially, enough to accommodate these maids. with a few sharing a room. The maids had just gone upstairs. Outside the door, the sound of digging into the dirt could be heard. Looking out, 10+ ground burrowers were digging out burrows, rushing out. Behind them trailed squads of Ratman warriors. The undead warriors guarding in front of the manor immediately clashed with these Ratmen. Nisbet 49, you are in charge here. Fang Hao ordered. Nisbet 49 acknowledged, yes, sir. Looking around at the other directions, Fang Hao continued. Nisbet 50, you take a team to the Viscera Museum to ensure the safety of Scholar Nelson. Aside from the skeleton craftsmen living in the production processing area, Nelson's Viscera Museum, located near the central area, may not hear any sounds of battle. But precautions must be taken against burrowers deviating from their track and tunneling towards the Viscera Museum. For safety, Nisbet 50 was assigned to lead a team to guarantee the safety of Nelson and the funeral priests. Yes, sir. Nisbet 50 agreed, leading his soldiers towards the Viscera Museum. As per the original plan, Nisbet would have been evaluated for his hero status on the previous day. But when Fang Hao learned about this mission, he postponed the evaluation. The idea was to maximize Nisbet's soul-devouring skill to raise his attributes as much as possible, to increase the chance of passing the tests. Soul-devouring allows one to consume a slain enemy's soul after killing them, enhancing one's strength. This ability needs to be honed on the battlefield. The more enemies you kill, the stronger you become. So, apart from Nisbet 49 and Nisbet 50, who were stationed outside the manor, the remaining Nisbets in the main city were all deployed in 4 separate locations, resisting the Ratmen on the battlefield, killing Ratmen to enhance their attributes. After handing out this assignment, he made sure that the Ratmen, even if they burrowed in, couldn't penetrate the manor. Fang Hao returned to his room, concentrating his remaining energy on the main battlefield. Only with victory on the main battlefield can this battle truly be ended. He reseated himself on the bone throne, and Fang Hao's conscious mind returned to the battle on the eastern side of the city. Pumping, pumping, pumping. A group of Ratmen, about the size of some calves, charged directly into the undead shield formation. Their flailing arms knocked the shield-bearing undead soldiers flying. Like a horde of enraged stars, they barreled directly through into the undead formation. Destruction Giant Mouse Tier 8. This kind of demon rat, their bodies are unusually strong. Slimy grayish-white fur, exaggerated bulging muscles. If not for their Ratman heads, one might even mistake these for deranged gorillas. Baron Tomb Guards, move, get rid of these big fellows. Fang Hao spoke nonchalantly, reliant on just their initial momentum. These destruction giant mice aren't numerous. Under a hail of arrows and magical bombardments, only about 200 managed to charge into range. The Baron Tomb Guards who were waiting in the rear immediately engaged, dozens of them ganging up on one, hacking the destruction giant mice into a bloody pulp. Even their robust bodies couldn't hold out for long under such mauling. Looking at the tunnels dug by the Ratmen up front, from which Ratmen were no longer emerging, Fang Hao immediately ordered, send the command, attack. Yes, sir. The messenger left to relay the command. Simultaneously, the drumbeats intensify. In the sky, several bone dragons took flight. Black pillars of energy swept through the Ratman hordes below. Huge swaths of Ratmen failed to evade in time and were hit by the energy columns. Their bodies began to disintegrate, turning into heaps of bones. At the same time, the semi-squatting spearmen, who focused solely on defense, surged forward. The Baron Tomb Guards and Nisbets behind the shield wall, like meat grinders, made short work of any enemy that managed to penetrate the defensive lines. The standoff had turned into a unilateral slaughter by the undead. Meanwhile, the shielded spearmen relentlessly advanced, forcing the Ratmen to retreat constantly. At this point, there were less than 10,000 Ratmen left. Gathered together, they watched the undead still advancing towards them, warily. Among the Ratmen, a Ratman leader clad in dark red armor, holding a sword with intricate patterns, glared furiously at the opponent. He was a hero among the Ratmen, the commander of this battle. Headhunter, Pritzker Purple Tier 5 Pritzker had received conventional military training among the Ratmen. Looking at the undead army arrayed outside the tunnel, it was evident that the enemy already knew their arrival location and was fully prepared. Unable to penetrate the undead defenses head-on, he chose the strategy of surprise attack, continuously launching attacks from the front to distract the primary force. Meanwhile, a large number of digging Ratmen were dispatched to excavate directly to the opponent's city. Once successful, the opponent's troops will have to rush back hastily. This will make it easier for them to surround and wipe out the entire force. However, something troubling happened with this plan. The troops assigned to the tunnels did not send back any news, and this force did not attempt to assist either. Now the opponent has launched another attack, driving them to a situation where there is no room for retreat. Pilots glanced at the troops in front of him, uncertainty creeping into his eyes. The horn was blown once again. The amplified Ratman's eyes turned crimson again, and with rage and bloodlust, they charged towards the attacking undead. As for Pulitz himself, he led his own small squad of 100. They dove into a nearby forest. He planned to use the Ratman as cannon fodder, buying him time to escape. But as soon as he moved, Fang Hao noticed. This Ratman in crimson armor was too conspicuous among the Ratman, impossible to ignore. And considering the various diseases the Ratman carried, Fang Hao couldn't let it escape alive. Watching Pulitz ready to dive into the forest, he immediately ordered his adjutant. Deploy troops to kill those escaping. Not a single one must get away. Yes, sir. The bone dragon and skeleton giant bat were once again dispatched, chasing after the escaping Ratman. Soon the sounds of intense combat were heard from the direction of the forest. 2 hours later, all the Ratmen were wiped out. In the forest, most of the undead soldiers perished as well, with only the headhunter Pilot struggling to survive. The steel blade in his hand barely supporting his body, his gray-white fur stained with blood. Fang Hao looked at the enemy from the rear of the army. Seeing the 5th-level purple energy of the opponent, he was somewhat surprised. No wonder, even with so many of his troops pinning him down, he still managed to hold on till now. When the Ratman leader was at his last breath, Fang Hao immediately said, "Stop, don't kill him." The spear thrust by the soldiers was immediately suspended in midair and gradually withdrawn. The demon doll walked over from behind, coldly staring at the Ratman hero who was barely alive. The Ratman hero's eyes flashed with a glimmer of hope. He guessed that the opponent might try to recruit him. This undead army did have many orc soldiers after all. Perhaps the opponent suddenly had an appreciation for talent and saw a possibility in recruiting him. Seeing a purple-armored undead walking towards him, the Ratman leader already had his answer ready. Firstly, he would agree to serve under him and save his own life. Then later, he would seek revenge or directly take the territory. Just as the Ratman leader was lost in his thoughts, he heard Fang Hao say, "Nai, come and kill him." The Ratman leader was confused. Who was Nai? Wasn't he supposed to be recruiting him? A large-headed undead walked over from the side and struck downwards with his axe. Puff! The sharp axe decapitated him, and his head rolled to the side. Meanwhile, a black fog rose from the corpse and entered Nai's mouth. It was the effect of the soul devouring, killing enemies to enhance one's own ability. Upon death, the corpse also dropped 2 special items. Nai picked them up and presented them to Fang Hao. Polluted blood 2. Category: blood. Description: the blood hides the secret of genetic modification within the demon rat race. Turns out it's rat blood. Not sure what it could be used for. Fang Hao put it away carelessly and continued to give his orders. Clean up the battlefield. Apart from this hero's corpse, burn all the others. Oh, and fetch a coffin from the storeroom. Bury this hero's corpse for now. We can dig it up when Bachelor Nelson comes out. No choice, Fang Hao was really scared of the virus. He could only wait for Nelson to come out and check if the corpse was infectious before making further plans. Hearing Fang Hao's order, all the undead began to move. They cleaned the battlefield, piled up the rat corpses, and proceeded to burn them. What a waste of all these bodies though. They could have been converted into additional troops in the conversion field. Although there was only a chance of infection from the Ratman, Fang Hao still didn't want to take such a risk. The combat power of Ratman troops wasn't that outstanding anyway, so it wasn't worth the risk. So, Fang Hao directly ordered all bodies were to be completely incinerated. The soldiers began to move. Fang Hao rode towards the other three's battlefield. Demetrija and Angia's battles had already ended, and they were cleaning up the battlefield. There were no Ratman heroes among their opponents, so the battles weren't too intense. After notifying them to incinerate the bodies, Fang Hao went onwards to the area overseen by Rock. The battle on Rock's side was also nearing its end. Soon, the rat swarm would be wiped out completely. After reminding Rock to incinerate the bodies, he returned to his territory. Back on the throne, Fang Hao withdrew the demon doll and inquired about the situation of Dong Jiayu and Kong Yang. The battle was still ongoing, but the outcome was already decided. There were no Ratman heroes on their side. and under their superior equipment and vast fire coverage, the Ratman army was at a complete disadvantage, plus a tenfold increase in the number of troops. They could trample those Ratmen into pies. After ending the message, Fang Hao steps out of the Lord's mansion, ordering the bodies outside to be completely cleaned up. The blood on the ground was also cleaned. It's now late at night. Demetrija, Angia, and Rocky are all finished with their respective battles. Fang Hao too has received a message from the system. Congratulations, Lord, on completing the demon rat migration task. Your city has slaughtered a total of 220,000 demon rats. Please claim your reward. Reward dispensation, plus 100 influence for all factions, 1 special blueprint orange, 1 hero recruitment scroll orange, plus 1,200 warfire coins. Once the battles in all areas ended, the system sent a message indicating the task was completed. Previous missions all had time limits. Even if you completed the task early, you had to wait until either time was up, or everyone had completed it, before the rewards would be dispensed uniformly. Now, the enemies in the mission wouldn't disappear just because time was up. Many lords, no doubt, would engage in protracted battles with these ratmen. Waiting for a uniform dispensation, the task might not be successfully completed in less than 10 days or half a month. The number of rewards isn't much, but their quality is high. Both items are of orange quality. Fang Hao directly checks the rewards. Magic Scroll Inscription Room orange, sturdy wood 2,200, stone blocks 3,500, fine stonework blocks 1,500, iron 1,200, cast iron 800, metal parts 200, rich essence 5, essence of magic 10, perfect essence 10, memory crystal 1. Description: this structure allows the inscription of magic scrolls. Indeed, it's an orange blueprint. Fang Hao feels quite pleased. From the name and the description below, one can figure out the use of the structure. It is used to inscribe magic scrolls. Fang Hao is somewhat familiar with magic scrolls. These consumables can unleash one-time magic. Even ordinary people can use scrolls to release powerful magic, launching attacks against their enemies. And their power is rather significant. They're hard to obtain on the market and quite expensive. After Fang Hao started studying magic, he no longer paid attention to these costly scrolls. However, mercenaries and aristocratic businessmen are very fond of these things, which can easily achieve results, though the materials consumed are rather substantial. Luckily, Fang Hao has them all. For the final memory crystal, Fang Hao swapped one over the regional channel. And he also got quite a few memory crystals from the dragon's treasure hoard last time. He didn't know what they were for then, so he just stored them in the basement. Even if they have a purpose now, it just uses up one. Fang Hao doesn't rush to build it. Instead, he continues to check the reward behind. Hero Recruitment Scroll Orange. Item Category: Recruitment Scroll. Description: upon use, it can randomly recruit an orange template hero. The Ratman's assault posed a little threat to him. The rewards were so substantial that he felt somewhat embarrassed receiving them. Maybe he should give himself a few cuts, otherwise, he might not feel at ease taking it. Fang Hao walks to the front of the Lord's mansion. Do you want to use the hero recruitment scroll? Once used, an orange hero can be randomly recruited. Use. Then, the recruitment scroll in his hand emits a faint glow, gradually dissipating like a burning piece of paper. The next second, a complex array appears on the empty ground in front of him. Under the cover of an orange light, a figure slowly rises from the ground. Successful recruitment, Kingdom's Glory, Asceti Orange 7th rank hero. Successful recruitment, Wind Demon, Edian rank 8. Upon seeing 2 recruitment notifications appear at the same time, Fang Hao was stunned. He reassured himself of the disappearing recruitment scroll, certain he didn't use it incorrectly. He had only used 1 scroll, so why were there 2 names? The array outside the door shone brighter and brighter. The contours of the hero became increasingly clear. When the light faded, a man and a horse stood before Fang Hao. Upon seeing this, Fang Hao understood why there were 2 names. One of them must have been the horse. The recruitment scroll was quite powerful. Be it Nelson, Demetrija, or the hero recruited today. Upon successful recruitment, the hero would appear with their equipment. So, for a gallant white horse to appear wasn't surprising. The horse was dressed in black armor, and a crossbow was hung on the left-hand side of its back. The hero, Asceti, was dressed in black armor with golden patterns, holding the horse's reins in his left hand, and leaning on a long, slender longsword with his right. The tip of the sword touched the ground, and the height of the sword was almost 1.7 meters. Based on the height of the sword, it was even taller than some of the maids in the territory. Aseti wore a helmet, quickly looking around. Upon seeing that a large number of skeleton undead were cleaning behind him, he twisted the longsword in his right hand, immediately entering a state of readiness for battle. Fang Hao was startled and quickly said, "Aseti, these are our territory's soldiers." Aseti, whose sword already emitted a glow, heard Fang Hao's shout and barely managed to stop his impending action. Through the gap in his helmet, his gaze met Fang Hao standing in front of the manor. "Did you awaken me?" a neutral voice asked from within the armor. Fang Hao temporarily was unable to discern Aseti's gender. "Yes, Aseti, welcome to our team. Our territory is a bit special. I'll explain it to you in detail later." "There's no danger here," whispered Fang Hao. Aseti reassured himself about the skeleton behind him. After confirming that the undead only worked and did not attack him, he finally dropped his guard. He took off his helmet, revealing short blonde hair, and with one knee on the ground, he said, "Your Majesty, please accept my apologies for my previous rudeness. Aseti, the glory of the kingdom, pays respects to the king." The moment he took off his helmet, Fang Hao confirmed Aseti's female identity. But she wasn't young anymore. The contours of her face and the wrinkles around her eyes suggested that Aseti was no longer young. Excluding the effects of rank, power, and special bloodline, she appeared to be between 40 and 45 years old. But Aseti was close to 1.8 meters tall and had an heroic aura. Welcome to the team, Aseti. Please get up. Let's talk inside," Fang Hao said with a smile. "Thank you, Your Majesty," Aseti replied, standing up. She hung her sword on the side of a horse and walked into the hall with Fang Hao. As Fang Hao sat down on the white bone throne, Aseti took a seat just below him. A maid hurried down from the second floor and offered the two a cup of fruit wine each, showing her alertness. And then she rushed back upstairs. She and other maids hid around the corner of the staircase, secretly looking down. Fang Hao had instructed them to rest upstairs, but in light of tonight's events, anyone would have had difficulty falling asleep. So, despite it being late at night, the maids were all quite alert. As soon as Aseti came in, she began looking around the hall. The decor here was a bit unusual. The chandeliers seemed orcish, the wall lights seemed like the blood clans. The throne Fang Hao was sitting on was made of bone, but her chair seemed like it belonged to the blood clan as well. This mix of styles was uncommon for a king's residence. "Aseti, our kingdom is somewhat unique. I need to explain a few things to you," Fang Hao said directly. "You may speak, Your Majesty," Aseti replied with a nod. "Our kingdom hasn't been established for very long. The territory is home to humans, orcs, the undead, trolls, lizardmen, the blood clan, and dwarves. Currently, all races live together peacefully, drawing on their own strengths to contribute to the kingdom," Fang Hao explained, looking at Aseti. As the number of races Fang Hao mentioned increased, Aseti's brows furrowed deeper. She was surprised to see the undead and orc maids here. She did not expect the young king before her to rule so many races. This is impossible. Aseti instinctively doubted, finding it hard to believe. How could so many races agree to human rule? How could the living and the undead live together? This was simply not possible. The reality is such. I guarantee them a stable life. They abide by my rules. So when you encounter other races within the territory later, refrain from acting rashly to avoid hurting our own people," explained Fang Hao, seemingly accustomed to such looks of surprise. Aseti remained silent for quite a while before accepting this fact. Fang Hao had no reason to lie to her. Moreover, she had indeed seen the undead and orcs with her own eyes. The presence of trolls and the blood clan probably wasn't made up either. "All right, I understand, Your Majesty." Aseti seemed to have accepted it. She had just joined the territory, so there was no need to fret about these things for now. She would do her job first and gradually learn what the kingdom she swore allegiance to really looked like. "By the way, my name is Fang Hao. You can simply address me as my lord," Fang Hao said. "Understood, my lord. Let's go. I'll build you a mansion where you can stay for the night. Tomorrow morning, I'll arrange for someone to give you a tour." Fang Hao stood up again and said softly, "Yes, my lord." The two of them left the lord's estate. Aseti led his horse, following behind Fang Hao. They came straight to a vacant site not far from the lord's estate. Fang Hao continued to ask, "Aseti, how do you feel about this place?" "I will follow your instructions, my lord," Aseti said. Without further ado, Fang Hao directly opened the Book of Lords and selected housing to erect a building. Once the glow faded after construction, the building was elevated to level 10 right away. The ordinary dwelling had turned into a mansion, a 3-story building with courtyards both front and back. Fang Hao turned around and summoned 10 skeleton warriors. He told Aseti, "There are many ready-made pieces of furniture in the storeroom. Go and pick what you like, and have the skeletons move them here." Aseti glanced at the skeletons and nodded in understanding. After giving the instructions, Fang Hao turned and left. Aseti entered his new mansion, removed the armor from his horse, and then walked out with the skeletons on their way to pick furniture from the storeroom. Although it was late at night, the roads were lit by nightstone lanterns and patrolled by undead guards. Aseti walked forward, astonished at the number of skeletons within the territory. Only after leaving did Fang Hao check Aseti's attributes. Radiance of the Kingdom, Aseti Orange Tier 7 Hero. Faction, Human Template, Gold. Race traits, Living Creature, Learning, Soul of Wind and Thunder. Legion Talent, Cavalry Formation, Goddess Blessing, Battle of Chivalry, Knight's Will. Fills, Sword of the Chosen, Sword of Divine Punishment, Insight of the Wind Spirit, Windstorm, Thunderbolt. Innate Abilities, Domain Level Riding Mastery, Domain Level Longsword Mastery, Master Level Tactical Mastery, Master Level Infantry Mastery. Soul of Wind and Thunder, plus 100% to air elemental spells. Cavalry Formation, a leading expert among knights. Knights under his command will greatly enhance their charge power when they form a cavalry formation. Goddess Blessing, human troops under his command receive additional damage reduction blessings from the goddess. Battle of Chivalry, with a well-known reputation. Human troops under his leadership recover morale plus 25% faster. Knight's Will, if cavalry dismount to fight, their attack power and defense are both increased by plus 15%. Sword of the Chosen active, increases all attributes by plus 100%. Sword of Divine Punishment active, strikes the enemy with the force of a thunderbolt, dealing 170% damage. Insight of the Wind Spirit active, upon skill activation, summons a wind spirit that reveals a remaining duration of 5 minutes. Windstorm active, releasing a windstorm can block ranged attacks. And in a downwind situation, it can increase the army's advancing speed. Thunderbolt active, deals air elemental chain damage to all enemies nearby. Description: she is skilled in combat techniques and familiar with military tactics, undefeated in her life. She is regarded by both civilians and nobles as a perfect and glorious example. After the new king ascended the throne, Aseti was recalled to the capital and executed. Clearly, Aseti is a cavalry commander, and a very outstanding one. In her legion talents, Cavalry Formation is a cavalry-specific talent. Goddess Blessing and Battle of Chivalry are also very practical, adding damage reduction and improving morale. Especially Knight's Will, which adds bonuses to infantry attacks and defenses after the cavalry dismount. Whether she's on horseback or on foot, Aseti is a competent commander. Among her skills, besides the 2 melee skills, Aseti also has 3 air elemental skills. Combined with her own Soul of Wind and Thunder talent, the effects of the 3 air elemental skills can be increased by 100%. A cavalryman who can use magic is rare, but it also proves Aseti's superior talent and strong power. Fang Hao is very satisfied with this new hero. Just as he was about to close the Book of Lords, he suddenly remembered the horse that appeared with Aseti. He quickly checked the attributes of the horse. Winged Demon, Orion Tier 8 owner. Aseti race traits, Living Creature, Warhorse, Unstoppable March. Skills, Head Horse, Wind Walk, Iron Hoof. Innate abilities, Advanced Speed Mastery. Monster Power passive, a specially trained warhorse that can manipulate the power of the wind in a simple way. Unstoppable March passive, this unit is immune to any form of slowing effect. Head Horse passive, when acting as the leading horse, the team's horse stamina consumption decreases by 20%, and the travel speed increases by 50%. Wind Walk passive, enter a high-speed travel state, wind resistance decreases by 80%. Iron Hoof active, the attack power of the front and rear hooves increases by 50%. Description: specially trained warhorse that can be equipped with heavy armor while still maintaining high mobility. The attributes of the Wind Demon are also quite good. Looking at the description, this horse is trained specifically for battlefield knights. If it can be equipped on a large scale, it would greatly enhance the power of the territory's cavalry. After checking the attributes of the Wind Demon, Fang Hao returned to the Lord's mansion and saw Demetrija, Angia, and Yangxing returning. Demetrija saluted and said, "My lord, all enemies on the battlefield were killed, the bodies were burned, and the spoils of war were cleaned and transported to the warehouse." Fang Hao had already received a system notification and also received the rewards. But Demetrija and the others didn't know about it yet. After tidying the bodies and the spoils of war, they came specially to report. "Well done. Take a rest in the city, you've all worked hard," said Fang Hao. This battle involved not only the undead garrison forces, but also a large number of humans and orcs from surrounding cities. Now the battle was over, and these people also needed rest. They were conveniently arranged to stay one night in the city, and return to their own territories after everything was over. "Yes, my lord, I will make arrangements immediately," Demetrija continued. Demetrija and Yangxin left to organize people's rest. Angia, who seemed unaffected, yawned and went upstairs to rest. After everything was taken care of, Fang Hao also went upstairs to rest. The next day, since he had gone to bed late the previous night, he didn't wake up until after 9 in the morning. After having a simple breakfast, Fang Hao opened the Book of the Lords and checked the local area channel. Overnight, a large number of lords continued with their challenge tasks. They were purchasing supplies in the channel while resisting the rat army. There was also bad news. Individual lords couldn't withstand the onslaught of demon rats, died in their hands, and lost their territories. Even if you're not the one who died, this was still bad news. The appearance of demon rats would disrupt the balance of power in the area. For these newcomers, it would increase the danger. If power struggles occur, they would also be affected. But this kind of situation was unavoidable. After all, a large number of transmigrators still survived in the region. No one can be sure what choices others will make. Stepping out of the Lord's mansion, Fang Hao stopped Angia and Laurie, who were planning to go out to play. "I have a task for both of you." "Huh? What task?" "We're going to catch fish. Ira is making fish tonight." Angia muttered. She showed a lot of resistance to not being allowed to go out and play. "A new hero named Aseti joined us last night. Bring her breakfast, show her around the city, and introduce her to each district," Fang Hao explained. "Someone new? How come I didn't see her?" Angia immediately became interested. "It was too late last night, so I didn't introduce you. Go now. After that, you can go out and play," Fang Hao said. "Okay, where does she live?" "Next to Demetrija's house. There's a white horse in the yard," Fang Hao continued. "Okay, leave it to us." After Angia finished speaking, she led Laurie to the kitchen, got breakfast, and walked towards Aseti's place. After watching Angia and Laurie leave, Fang Hao directly arrived at the open space in the central district. He opened the Book of Lords and built a magic scroll inscription room orange. Confirm the construction. An orange light combined to form a tower building. 30 minutes later, the light dissipated, and the magic scroll inscription room appeared before Fang Hao. Magic scroll inscription room orange. Category: Special building. Recruitment. Scroll inscriber. Scroll inscriber. Wriggling spine 3. Mithril 1. Inscribed. Dark magic. Magic missile. Description: Record magic. Inscribe scrolls. After viewing the information of the inscription room and understanding its function, the function is more like a recruitment building. Similar to a tailor shop or a blacksmith shop, it can recruit special job soldiers. However, the scroll inscriber should be more advanced, since it inscribes scrolls after all. In addition, the cost of recruitment is a bit higher. A wriggling spine requires 3 units, but this consumption is nothing to Fang Hao at this moment. Do you want to consume 3 wriggling spines and 1 mithril to recruit a scroll inscriber? Yes, triggering a 100-fold increase, recruiting 101 scroll inscribers. The light flickered, and 101 scroll inscribers appeared in front of Fang Hao, still in the form of a skeleton, wearing a white robe. "Greetings, Lord." The scroll inscribers collectively paid their respects. "Well, welcome all." Fang Hao nodded. His eyes continued to look at the inscriber who was leading the group out of the building. "What's your name?" "My lord, my name is Fuller." "All right, Fuller, from now on, you will be in charge of task distribution here," said Fang Hao. "Thank you for your trust, my lord," Fuller immediately replied. "Fuller, the scroll inscriber's loyalty to you has increased by 10 points. Current loyalty is 75. By the way, Fuller, what does it mean by recording a scroll in the building?" Fang Hao continued to ask. It was shown in the attributes of the inscription room. Only a dark magic missile has been recorded. Magic missile is a very basic dark spell, used by undead mages in battle. My lord, the inscription room needs to record magic. The recorded magic can then be inscribed into scrolls, Fuller explained. How to record? There are generally two ways. One is the camp magic that has been unlocked by the territory. The other is that magic scholars who have deep research into magic can also write out the magic for recording. Fang Hao rubbed his chin and immediately had someone bring over the multi-headed fire python's secret from the study. He handed it to Fuller and said, "Check if this book can be recorded." Fuller respectfully took it and had the skeleton beside him take it into the inscription room. Fang Hao immediately noticed that the inscription room's attributes had already shown the recording status of new skills. Flame Spider recording countdown 9 hours 58 minutes. Multi-headed fire python recording countdown 5 days 23 hours 59 minutes. As expected, it could. Seeing the progress of recording, Fang Hao couldn't help but feel delighted. However, the time it took was even longer than he had imagined. Flame Spider took 10 hours, while the multi-headed fire python skill directly reached 6 days. It seemed that it would take even longer to produce. Fuller, please focus on producing magic missiles for the next few days. Once new skills are collected, send them over, Fang Hao said. All right, my lord. Inscribing scrolls will need to consume paper, mithril and materials associated with the property, Fuller remarked. Right, take whatever you need from the warehouse. If there are particularly scarce materials, inform me. Fang Hao could trust the undead soldiers completely. There wouldn't be any corruption in the undead's case. All right, my lord. After Fuller nodded again, he took his subordinates straight into the inscription room. In the afternoon, most of the supporting orcs and humans had returned to their respective cities. The ground in front of the mansion had been replaced with stone slabs, back to its original appearance. Just as Fang Hao was about to leave, a maid ran over quickly. She panted and said, "Master, the Trade Alliance has sent a teleportation request." Ever since Moru, a goblin from the Trade Alliance, teleported directly into the city last time, Fang Hao had switched off the teleportation function of the Trade Alliance building. If anyone wants to teleport through the Trade Alliance building again, they would send a teleportation request. Upon receiving the request on Fang Hao's side, if he wants to allow the other party to teleport, he just needs to switch on the teleportation function. Of course, the one in charge of the teleportation function was the skeleton merchant, Daljin. The maid was only there to convey the message. Tell Daljin to turn on the teleportation function, Fang Hao said. Oh, all right, master. The maid ran off again. When the maid returned, Moru, the goblin clerk, followed her. Mr. Fang Hao. Moru showed a professional smile and hurried forward 2 steps. Mr. Moru. Fang Hao also greeted back. Without beating around the bush, Moru directly said, "The 2,000 people promised by the fairy clan last time have arrived near your territory. To avoid misunderstandings, they asked me to inform you. Only the last 2,000 people remain to complete Fang Hao's agreement with the Dreamy Forest." Moru also hoped that this matter could be over sooner, so he would have less to worry about. Fang Hao's territory has a large number of defense troops. If they do not inform him in advance and rashly enter the defense range, even 2,000 people would not be enough to fill the gaps between the defense forces' teeth. They wouldn't even be able to see Fang Hao, and probably there won't be any remains left afterwards. Therefore, Moru specifically came to notify. Oh, that was fast. Fang Hao was surprised. But he soon came to his senses. He had been busy with the challenge task for these few days. It had been over a week since he last negotiated with the fairy clan. It wasn't too fast after all. Well, it's better to be quicker. Moru chuckled. Fang Hao nodded and said to the maid beside him, "Go get Demetrija." The maid left on command, returning with Demetrija following her. "Sir, please command." Demetrija, join Mr. Moru on a trip to bring back the 2,000 farmers sent by the fairy clan, ordered Fang Hao. Yes, sir. Accepting the command, Demetrija left the city gate with the goblin Moru and thousands of skeleton soldiers. They headed off in an easterly direction. 2 hours later, Demetrija returned, followed by a troop of 1,000 people. Woodland attendant level 2. Their appearances did not significantly differ from that of humans. Some were shirtless, revealing tattoos that resembled branches and leaves, while others were dressed neatly in ordinary clothes. However, similar among them, They all wore various ornaments around their necks and tucked along and a short feather behind their left ears. All these people stood there, their heads lowered, looking somewhat uneasy. Sir, the people have been brought over. There are exactly 2,400 of them, along with some carts and baggage. 400 of them were the guards of this troop, and they brought weapons, which I've already confiscated, Demetriger reported. At that, one of the fairy guards came forward. He respectfully said, "Human sir, as per Shinosaurus chief's instruction, 2,000 woodland attendants were dispatched, and given potential dangers on the road, 400 guards were arranged." This fairy troop had traveled under the banner of the Trade Alliance. The Trade Alliance was a neutral force and was fairly prestigious. Any powers upon seeing the Trade Alliance's troops would make way, they wouldn't make trouble for this troop. However, these were only rules in theory. Troops would disappear year after year. Moreover, this area was rife with small brigands and robbers. If you told these thugs about the Trade Alliance, they most likely wouldn't even have heard of it. Without some defensive measures, it would have been hard to get here. Fang Hao nodded, looked down at all the fairies, and announced loudly, "I have reached an agreement with Chief Shinosara. You will work for me for 10 years, and I will take responsibility for your living conditions and safety. Sir, rest assured, Chief Shinosara explained everything to us when we left." The leading fairy continued to say, "Good, if so, it's for the best." Fang Hao continued, "Demetrija, go on another trip, take them to Zhang Bin's territory, then ride back on a bone dragon." "Yes, sir." Once again, Demetrija called out and set off with a group of undead warriors. Surrounding these fairies, they headed toward Zhang Bin's city. A few days ago, Fang Hao had discussed this matter with Zhang Bin. These 2,000 people would be settled in the vicinity of Zhang Bin's city and would engage in farming. Food supply within the territory was an extremely critical and scarce issue. If the fairy clan's farming abilities were indeed several times more efficient than ordinary people, Fang Hao could consider cooperating directly with the dreamy forest. They were having troubles, right? He would help the fairies resolve their troubles. The fairies would help him solve the food problem. "Mr. Fang Hao, now that the people from the fairy clan have arrived, my task is completed, so I won't bother anymore." "Mr. Moru said, adjusting his collar with a smile. This issue had been on his mind. Now that the agreement between the two parties was fulfilled, it had nothing to do with their trade alliance. As for whether future arrivals from the fairy clan live or die, or whether other conflicts arise, it would have nothing to do with their trade alliance. "Mr. Moru, why the hurry to leave? Have dinner before you leave," Fang Hao also said. "There are things I need to go back and deal with, so I won't stay," Moru said with some regret. "All right then." Fang Hao saw Moru off. Upon returning to the mansion, he checked the estate and went to bed after dinner. On the 5th day of his stay in the territory gathered 270 young women. There were humans, orcs, and dwarves. Among them, the orcs, including pigmen, gnolls, demon orcs, and taurens, totaled 120 people. There were 100 humans and 50 dwarves. These people, in accordance with Fang Hao's request, were sent by various cities due to their strong understanding and willingness to learn. They would follow Fang Hao to this city to learn about herbalism and midwifery, among other related knowledge in the temple. Within the camp, the number of orcs and humans were the greatest, followed by significantly fewer trolls and dwarves. However, due to the past antagonistic relationship between trolls and humans, it was unlikely that the trolls could be sent into Lis City. Therefore, trolls were not included this time. When in the future, our people become proficient in herbalism, there will be no need to send them out to learn. Shortly after, everyone was ready. The merchant caravan wagons were also all filled with people. "Master, everyone has registered and is ready." Han Guo's face was somewhat reddened as she held a small notebook, which recorded all the names of the people. Han Guo, who had studied herbalism notes, this time, following the team to the temple as part of her further studies. Meanwhile, having someone with a certain foundation in herbalism could also help others. More so, as Fang Hao's maid, she could better manage these people to avoid any mishaps in human cities. "Well then, let's get the caravan moving." With a wave of his hand, Fang Hao said. The caravan left the city in a grand manner, proceeding south along the road. Fang Hao and Angia sat inside the wagon, with Demetrija riding a giant lizard on their left, and Aseti riding a wind demon on their right. The skeleton hero Yan Shu was left to guard the city. The large group proceeded and arrived at Fu Lei's city by noon. The person welcoming the caravan was not Fu Lei, but his girlfriend Xin Yao Yao. "Boss, you're here." Xin Yao Yao pushed her glasses up and hurriedly came forward. "Where is Fu Lei?" Fang Hao disembarked from the wagon. Some affiliated villages were recently troubled by a band of vagabonds who have damaged several fishing boats and tools several times. This morning, Fu Lei took people to deal with it, Xin Yao Yao explained. Fu Lei had incorporated all the fishing villages around the lake into affiliated villages. The villages fish for Fu Lei, and in return, Fu Lei is responsible for their security. When a problem arises, he couldn't just hide. "Oh? Who are these people?" Fang Hao continued to ask. Xin Yao Yao thought for a moment and said, "According to the villagers, they are bandits who have fled here. There are orcs and humans among them, but not too many." In this vicinity, following Fang Hao's multiple purges, bandits were already rare. However, who could be sure that bandits and fugitives from other regions didn't slip into this area? Thus, the villages still had guards to prevent these potential problems. Since Fu Lei was alerted, the opponent should have some manpower. "Okay, I got it. When I go into the neighboring region, I will check it out," Fang Hao said. Hearing that Fang Hao was heading there, Xin Yao Yao was relieved. The reason she brought up this issue was naturally because she was afraid that Fu Lei couldn't handle it and might encounter danger. Now that Fang Hao was going, any difficulty could be solved. "Okay, thank you, boss." Xin Yao Yao was so grateful that she even bowed. "All right, I need to build a military camp here. Inform Fu Lei when he comes back," Fang Hao said. "Okay." Fang Hao went to the military camp area, opened the Book of Lords, and found the building page. Lionheart Night Camp, hardwood 5,200, stone brick 3,500, fine work stone brick 2,200, thick leather 1,500, cast iron block 800, metal parts 420, trace of battle 2. A huge building gradually took shape in the light. The Lionheart Knights camp was an unlockable blueprint of a purple building after Fang Hao swallowed Yu Tanpeng's Book of Lords. It hadn't been established yet. This time, after recruiting the Orange Cavalry leader Aseti, Fang Hao planned to organize a powerful cavalry team. The situation in Lis City was not good, and the fighting power of the thugs under the control of the Grey Bears was indeed limited. Since stopping over in Fu Lei City, it's the ideal time to establish the Lionheart Night Camp. Half an hour later, the light dissipated. The building also appeared in front of Fang Hao. Lionheart Night Camp Purple. Type, Human Architecture. Recruiting, Lionheart Knights. Lionheart Knights, Soul Crystal 8, Food 50, Trace of Battle 7, Star Silver 2. Description. Lionheart Knights are composed of the kingdom's most elite knights. They stand high, have repeatedly made remarkable achievements, and with the honor banner of the knights, they strictly follow the way of the kingdom's knights. Recruitment requires 8 soul crystals, indicating that the rank of the Lionheart Knights is level 8. Without hesitation, Fang Hao directly chose to recruit.